Oh, now we're live, apparently. Oh, excuse me a second, folks. There we go. Hello, hello, hello. I hope you can all hear me. Just popping on for a wee quick moment to check video and sound. I've got green lights. I've got everything looks good. So yeah, just popping on a wee moment, folks. I'm Sloan, and welcome to my science fiction station. If you're about, the Doghouse is what we call it. Let me just see if I can tilt this a wee bit. Bear with me a wee second. Sorry, folks, it's been about a month or so, just over a month, I think, since we've been here. That's good to be back. I'm just trying to adjust cameras and things there. That's just make my life a little bit easier. Sorry about that. Changing the room around a little bit at the minute, and yeah, working away. There we go. There's 9 o'clock. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station here at the Doghouse. Well, hey, we've gone with some pop culture t-shirts. To treat ourselves, actually, that are maybe a wee bit relevant. The Doghouse is a wee bit of a joke. It's the name of the space station for mutants, only in the Strontium Dog stories. And of course, I am a mutant with all sorts of many wisdom teeth, etc., etc. But we've had a wee break for a wee while, folks. We finished up our Dune Messiah book club, and now we're back for probably another year-long run or so at Frank Herbert's third Dune novel, Children of Dune. And I was just doing a wee quick bit of, I managed to forget to highlight a couple of wee things there in my notes, so I was just doing that. But I'll stop doing that now. I've got most of them. And we'll work out. We'll just do that maybe a wee bit as we go. So if anybody's out there, say hello. It's really nice to be back. And unfortunately for myself, actually, I was hoping to do a few wee things over the break, and that just didn't happen. Just for some reasons, I've been convalescing basically with this old shoulder injury, which has gotten quite bad. And just having had a chat with a few of you guys, etc. out there, I've actually kind of started putting in some feelers, etc. So I've been in contact with a private pain clinic and stuff like that. See if I can get things sorted anyway. But if you see me wincing a wee bit, I'll do my best. But my old shoulder's wrecked from a couple of years ago, and there's some people arriving. And I've got dogs barking like nuts tonight for some reason. We're melting here. It is such a muggy day. We'll just catch up on your comments. Anybody says hello. We had a wee comment there from Cosmic Faust Ellis just before it popped on. It says, "Hi Doc, hope you're doing okay. I'm currently working on my philosophy MA dissertation, which is based on Herbert's Dune series. In fact, when I first told you about it, it was exactly 1 year ago. Excellent. And I was saying, I hope it's going well and good to hear. And look forward to reading it, Cosmic Faust Ellis. And all the very best of luck with it. We're hearing more and more about people doing little bits of work, master's papers, doctorates, etc., from all sorts of people, which is really interesting, you know. And so keep it up. And it is great to see, by the way. It looks like Dune is beginning to get, the Dune series, Frank Herbert's work, is beginning to kind of get the attention in academia and elsewhere that you would have seen with something like Lord of the Rings, for example, which has had an awful lot of academic work done on it over the years. So that's kind of, it's heartwarming to see that. There's Sean Wellen saying good evening Sean, thanks very much for joining us. And there's Chaya, shalom all, welcome back, thank you very much. Chaya, it's good to have you here. Apologies Chaya, by the way, I just put up a wee title card the other week and said it will be on next week, and I think you popped on to say hello and I wasn't there. I do put little, for anybody who's not too sure, the title cards have information, and down in this corner, or all right, that's awkward to do, down in this corner is always a date for the episode, actually, though I know it's probably a wee bit hard to see. But sorry about that, Chai. It was just I wanted to let people know I'll be back. And there's Zach Armstrong saying hello. Hi Zach, thanks very much for joining us. And there's Babs. Howdy Doc, good evening y'all. Hi Babs, great to have you. Sootpot, peace Docs, good to see you Sootpot. Thanks very much for joining us. And then Babs is saying, Cosmic, hope you consider getting your disc to Jack Aruti so it can be available to Dune fans. Absolutely. A big thanks as well to Jack Aruti, folks. That's courtesy of Sootpot, by the way. My PhD is up there and available for anybody who wants to read it. Of course, you can actually download the document, and that's completely free. And it's what we're all about here, by the way, education entertainment, a wee bit of fun and books and science fiction, any shape or form. But we're really not fond on people paying for access to stuff like this. Hiding behind paywalls. My PhD's been behind paywalls for years. I see no money from it at all, and it stops people from, particularly fans, from reading this kind of stuff. So that's good to hear. Indeed, yeah, if we can get some more of this stuff down to Jackie Rutu as well. For anybody who's got a master's thesis or anything like that they'd like to put up here, because we've got a strong wee Dune audience here, I'd be very happy to turn it into a set of videos for anybody, with your name on all over it, etc., etc. If anybody wants me to put it up, and I'll be very delighted to do so if they want to make it available, But that's great, So thanks very much for joining us, folks. It's been I've just been trying to take it easy. In all honesty, with all correspondence and stuff, I've had pretty much a month solidly away from the computer, really just due to the shoulder. In fact, both shoulders. But I've been. And a big thank you, by the way, to X-Ray Zulu, who's out there, for letting me know about these exercises. What are they called? Wall angels, which has been a massive help. That's about as far as I can move my shoulder up at the moment. So fortunately, it's all on my left and the right hand, and we've managed to fix all our ink pens, and the ink doth flow now. So, folks, today we'll do a wee bit of a preamble on Children of Dune. I'm just going to show you a few wee things, first of all. And just quickly before, I suppose maybe I was keeping what I've been reading at the minute, just to show you this, by the way. Now, I don't recommend anybody buying this book, but this is what I've been reading very recently. I'm on Triplanetary at the minute, the first of the Landsman stories. It's a big gap in my science fiction knowledge. Know a bit about it, but I've never actually managed to read the whole thing. And this book is like a phone book, quite frankly. It's ridiculous. It's tiny. It's all of them in one thing. And it's of very poor quality, and the page is actually split as you read it. So I'm kind of having to read it in a very funny way. And the good thing is, I suppose I have a couple of these books, but I've never ever had the first Landsman book. I've got Galactic Patrol, I think, and First Landsman. I've got two of them. So I'm going to read the first one in this, use the novels, and then read the rest. But looking forward, I'm kind of enjoying it. It's very much space opera from a different time, and already I can see its influence on Dune. It has a breeding program, which I did not know about. So that's interesting. In terms of copies of Dune, here's what we've got. One, Children of Dune, sorry. This is the copy I'm going to be working with, by the way, and I'm going to explain why in a wee second. I've been working with these editions, which we've been pretty appalled at so far. And in this book, basically, almost all of the chapters, etc., they have been crammed in, that you can hardly tell where the separation between chapters starts. This one's not so bad, actually, and I like this copy. So I've got three of these, but the writing's going to be a bit small for me. We've got this one, and again, it's not too bad, actually, but the writing's a bit small. But the reason why I've gone with this edition, which is one of the Golan's prints, there we go. I quite like these. Again, I've never owned a full set of Dune books. I've got lots and lots, but a maximum I have is 5 out of any given 6 books. But the print in this one is much darker, and there's a clear separation of chapters from epigraph to epigraph, if you like. So I'm finding this much easier. I started actually working, as you can probably see, with this copy, and I gave up. And I'm not fond of those editions at all. So this is a Golan's edition. We're going to work epigraph to epigraph. As always, that's the chapter sections within Dune. I'm going to look at a few wee comments on Children of Dune. Started. Cosmic Fire says, I never knew about the Jackie Rutu website. We'll have to think about it. The essence of the dissertation is arguing in favor of metaphysical framework that I believe Herbert was defending. Excellent. Cosmic Faust Ellis, way back, Jackie Rutu was a very good resource for me. It was kind of a bit of a surprise to find out that Soot Pot was part of it all, And so yeah, it's definitely get in touch with those guys if you want. If anybody's got anything Dune related, send it to them. It's a really good one-stop shop for an awful lot of Dune stuff and a lot of discussion and stuff. I've never kind of been a member, but I hang around it and look and read and stuff. If you see what I mean. Pardon me. And then Babs is saying cosmic sounds cool. It's fabulous. The multitude of ways we can relate with or to Dune. Absolutely. We're going to even talk about a couple of different ways within this chapter tonight, actually. Chaya saying, I recall trying to write about Frank and Dune at uni in the mid-80s, but my professor wouldn't approve thesis about a science fiction author. I'm glad Frank is getting his due in academia. Yeah, it's actually kind of one of the things that actually interested me in science fiction academia is because it's seen as in the gutter, or has been for a long time. Particularly within the journals, etc. You can generally see that a lot of the stuff within them is produced by science fiction authors themselves or science fiction fans. So there's been some problems, really. I think the main problem within science fiction academia, certainly up to the point where I was doing it, my PhD was around 2010, is bias. And it's very, very, very heavy. So it's and I think that's changing. I think but there are so many ways to approach the Dune series. We've talked about tons of them. We're going to mention a couple of the other approaches by other academics tonight, just in relation to stuff that's in here. So hopefully we'll have a wee chat. We'll have a wee mention of Cara Kennedy tonight, and let me see, just so I get everybody's names here. We're going to have briefly mention and hopefully give you a couple of links to some stuff. But in relation to Islam and Dune, we've got Haris A. Durrani's work, which is pretty good, and also Caladan Bahildon as well. And I just found some new stuff by a chap called Ali Karju Raveri. Tonight he's also done some work on Islam and Dune. We're going to be chatting a wee bit about that tonight because we've got references to the Quran, I suppose, within this chapter. There's Bojack Harkness saying hello all, and Supot saying hi man. Yeah, it's good to have you all here, folks. It's great to be back, by the way. I've missed actually doing this. It really keeps me occupied in many ways. Pardon me. But yeah, I've needed a month to just chill, I think. Interesting. Now let me see. I've bookmarked a few wee things here, folks, just to see if I wasn't too daft about it. But the first thing we're going to talk about, obviously, is that Children of Dune is the third. In fact, I'm going to give you a couple of wee things I've scribbled down here. So, interestingly enough, I was having a wee look at Lawrence of Arabia again the other day, and I scribbled down a quote. And I don't know if this was ever really said, but it's a quote from Faisal I of Iraq in Lawrence of Arabia. I don't know if it's from the film or if it's in real life, but I just thought I'd mention it. And this is the quote before we get going, because this is the beginning, really. We're starting to see the ecological disaster within Children of Dune. And this is the wee thing that I thought was interesting. It's no Arab loves the desert. We love water and green trees. There is nothing in the desert, and no man needs nothing. And I just thought I'd throw that in there. I love watching Lawrence of Arabia is an incredible film, isn't it? And just to see the, I think, is it mostly filmed in Jordan, I think, in places like that, to see the desert there, particularly with all the different tribes and stuff. It's incredibly beautiful and very well filmed. So I was just having a wee nosy at Lawrence of Arabia. I'm a bit of a fan of Lawrence, as I'm sure you know. He's an interesting chap. My main reason for liking Lawrence has got nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's to do with he did a rather very good translation of the Odyssey. That's what I've always appreciated him for, though he is a fascinating character. So just to let you know, folks, Children of Dune then is first published in Analog Science Fiction Science Fact in January from 1976. Sorry, in 1976, from January to April, in 4 parts. And Children of Dune is, in fact, the last. That's probably my preferred cover, by the way. I love that cover. Is the last of the Dune books to be serialized from then on. So God Emperor is not serialized, neither is Heretics or Chapter House. to the best of my knowledge. I'll check on that. But also, just a few wee facts about it. So it's the last of the Dune series to be serialized. It's the first in hardback form at the time of its release. Excuse me. It sold over 75,000 copies, which made it the first hardcover bestseller in science fiction. So it's got its own little kind of little notables, if you like. It was nominated for the Hugo Award in 1977, but did not win. The book that won that year was Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang by Kate Wilhelm. And of course, also concluding on with, going on with just representations on TV, etc. Dune Messiah and Children of Dune basically are the Children of Dune miniseries that came out in 2003. And the other thing, just to let you know, we've discussed this before in relation to Dune Messiah, but it's also just to remind you that this is also to do with Children of Dune, and this is, I suppose, some of the stuff that's come out from the film, people talking nonsense. This book is also partly written at the same time as Dune. So, as Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune, parts of all three books are written at the time of creation, if you like, if that's a good way of putting it. And as much as they're finished years later, elements of this book were written at the same time of Dune. And if we understand the complexities and weaving in and weaving out, if you like, of plots within plots and plans within plans within plans, if you're going to try and write this kind of long epic story that has many kind of self-repeating patterns within it, etc., you really would need to plan it out quite well, wouldn't you? Bear with me a wee quick second, folks. I'll just grab some of this stuff down here. Should have grabbed it down earlier. There we go. Dune DVDs. Oh, now I must have a wee look at this again soon. Because, okay, just in relation to, we've got David Lynch's, which is our favourite, but this is the Children of Dune miniseries, which continued on from the Dune miniseries, with a few changes in actors, actually, which is probably one of the sad things. There's a bit of problem with continuity in actors, but is arguably the most faithful adaptations of Dune so far. I would say so, definitely. And of course, we have the twins in this are a bit older than they are in this book, I think. So I actually picked up a digitally remastered copy of the miniseries recently, but I haven't got around to having a wee nosy at it. It was in a bargain bin. So there we go. So we can check out Dune Messiah and Children of Dune as a TV series. It's very good. I think I really enjoyed it. Though, of course, the children are a little bit older. Pardon me. Let's see, just have a wee look. Sorry, bear with me a wee second. I'm a wee bit coffee as always. Frogs live permanently in my throat. But there's Morgan MPB saying great cover. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have a few. Again, I don't think there's a full set of Dune books with these covers. I'll have 3 of these, but there's the full thing. And I really like these. Is that the John Schroeder covers, I believe? Possibly. Yeah. I quite like them. I actually quite like these as well, actually, but they're so small, which is a pity, And I said there's different editions of the books, etc. We've had a few bits of bother with the modern editions, and I'm also very fond of these ones here, which kind of have. There's a picture online. If somebody looks for it, you can get all 6 of the Dune covers put back to back or outside to side, making one enormous picture, which is really cool. I'm trying to remember the name of that artist. I've got an episode on covering some of the Dune covers. It's within the PhD, and it names about all of these artists. Unfortunately, I'm a bit bad with their names at the moment. Pardon me. Now, I've got Frank Herbert's Maker of Dune, and Frank Herbert by Timothy O'Reilly here. And I really am hoping I bookmark these things and highlighted them, hopefully. But just to give it just a couple of wee comments on, let's just see. There's just something there. on Children of Dune, Ecology of Consciousness. And Hellstrom's Hive, for example. This is just the end of a chapter in Ecology of Consciousness in Timothy O'Reilly's Frank Herbert, and then the worm turns over. We go. Let me see. Sorry, let me just jump ahead. Right. So just going to read you a few things from this, but this is ending one chapter and going into another. This is in relation to Hellstrom's Hive. It says, in Hellstrom's Hive, one sees the techniques that were later to shape Dune Messiah, and especially Children of Dune. The reader must not only resolve uncertainty, but use his own awakened sensibilities to recast the paradoxes and inversions with which he is presented. Okay, so let's jump forward a wee bit. Now, I've just highlighted a few wee things. Just if anybody wants to sort of look into this, is Bruce Pennington. Thanks, Bruce Pennington. Thank you, Sootpot. We're getting it mixed up there. Yeah, it's funny. You can't remember something, and so pops into your head. That's Frank Herbert by Timothy O'Reilly. This book's available for free online, by the way. Has been for forever. So let's just have a wee look. The Fremen have been tied to the Atreides even more surely by the proof that Paul in his death was one of them. And perhaps most importantly, Paul's inexplicable sacrifice will serve as his preaching never could, to disturb the complacency of the Empire. Dying, he creates a lasting myth. He is the full saint, the golden stranger living forever on the edge of reason. Let your guard fall when he is there. When he read the manuscript of Dune Messiah, Campbell was horrified. This is Joseph Campbell. John Wood Campbell Jr., the editor of Analog. And we can see, by the way, that Children of Dune was published in this magazine. He refused to publish the novel. So he wrote, in outline, it sounds like an epic tragedy, but when you start thinking back on it, it works out that Paul was a damn fool and surely no demigod. He loused up himself, his loved ones, and the whole galaxy. And I suppose, let me just see that again. Campbell was right, but he missed the point. Paul's success in becoming a martyr and putting the Empire back on a reliable, safe course is a gloss over deeper failure. To show that failure, despite the best efforts of a very attractive hero, was one purpose of the novel. As in Dune, both the failure and the apparent appearance of success are essential. I think that's interesting, the appearance of success. But in accordance with the plan of the trilogy, the balance has shifted towards failure. Even to one who does not know the purpose of the trilogy, Dune Messiah works as a tragedy. The psychology by which Paul confronts his crises is inescapably familiar, despite the fact that the problems of prescience that provoke the crises are so obviously unfamiliar. John Campbell said it couldn't be done. After reading Dune, he had written, as the father and or stepfather of several literary supermen, I've learned something about their care and upbringing. They're very recalcitrant. No human being can write about the thoughts, philosophy, motivations, or evaluations of a Superman. There are two ways that Supermen have been handled successfully in science fiction. Method one is what you've got here so far. You don't talk about the Superman, but show a Superboy who hasn't yet developed his powers out and beyond your ability to conceive them. And rather interestingly, that's what we're going to have in Children of Dune. We've got, in fact, the age, if you like, of the protagonists of this book is much lower. We can start with Paul being 15 within Dune. But in Dune Messiah, Herbert is able to show Paul's maturity, to extrapolate his immense powers, and yet to keep him within reach. Now, jumping forward a wee bit, while Herbert's readers do not struggle with prescience, they do struggle with time, choice, and the need to be right. One must decide now, but who does not long to stretch the boundaries of the present for some glimmer of certainty from the future? I'm not too sure I'd agree with that, that Herbert's readers do not struggle with prescience. I think that's part of, we're fed things. We have foreknowledge within the book, and that's prescience. So just jumping forward, Paul's moments of paralysis before the overwhelming choices presented by this time vision, so the agony indecision. But here, the Atreides were the cause of the Trojan War and the transition from epic to tragedy, etc. So Children of Dune continues the story of the Atreides to its more tragic end. In the conclusion of the trilogy, Paul is brought back from his seeming death in the desert, an old broken man who can only rage at the church built on his name. His son Leto must undo the damage Paul had unwittingly done, toppled the church and reversed the ecological transformation before the spice itself is destroyed. Leto takes the one path of vision that Paul feared and refused. He becomes an absolute tyrant, inhuman and nearly immortal. He can give the people the absolute assurances they desire. He can, but only at the price of absolute control. The ultimate failure of messianic leadership, foreshadowed from the beginning, has finally come to the front. So there's more in here, I suppose. We're going to talk about this in a wee minute, but on one level, it's the anticipation of the full saint theme, which is evoked by Paul's final walk into the desert. And just to let you know, the importance of this theme is shown by the fact that this was the working title of the novel. That's full saint. Paul is seduced by leadership, not prophecy. He gave in to the jihad because he had to, and Paul, like Oedipus, is destroyed by his own uprightness. As the uncertainty mounts, he forgets the arbitrary nature of human morality, that men create gods to enforce their definitions of good and evil. The son escapes the father's dilemma partly because he is not Atreides but Fremen. In Children of Dune, Leto says to Paul, "You don't take your vision far enough, father. Your hands did good things and evil. But the evil was known after the event, which is the way of many great evils," Leto said. "It is sad you were never really Fremen. We Fremen know how to commission the Arifa. Our judges can choose between evils." And then just to go on, much of Children of Dune recounts the paths of inner experience by which Leto reaches that point of maturity. There's a wee bit more there with the golden path and stuff, etc., etc. And I think I'll maybe keep that for when we get there, I suppose. And on to Kralazak. But this is the chapter within, if anybody wants to read this in detail, within Frank Herbert by Timothy O'Reilly, this is the chapter called The Worm Turns. And it's a good read. But I'm not here to read that whole book. I could probably do that. Let me just have a wee quick look here now. In relation to, this is now just having a wee quick look at Maker of Dune before we tear into the book. Let's see. I really should have some, I should get better at this, shouldn't I? So I suppose this is the most, we're really heading back into the ecology as a major theme within this. I just wanted to read, I've got a little bit here in Frank's words, nothing too much. I'll just quickly on ecology here. When this is from the introduction to Saving Worlds, from the Maker of Dune, Insights of a Master of Science Fiction, edited by Timothy O'Reilly, Frank Herbert. When I think of ecology, I often recall the story about the man who was told he had 1 week to live unless he invested his life savings in a complex treatment, which offered him a 50-50 chance of extending his life by only 1 year. That's the hot gospel, and you better believe it. This is then it's everybody's go on to now. Let's see. There are indications that ecology is a concern for the future of our species is following this course. The important thing to recognize is that ecology as a phenomenon reflects a genuine underlying malaise. The boil is a symptom of infection. It's when we confine ourselves to the surface symptoms that we guarantee more and more lethal eruptions. This is the essence of the ecological message. We are engaged in a planet-wide crisis of the human species, which is shared by all. We are beyond the point of no return in technological developments, which exert greater and greater influence upon individuals, often with shockingly destructive consequences, which are amplified by war. People who say the only answer is demonstrate little more than the tightness, the confining restrictions of the either-or arena, within which they insist we must make our decisions. Few focus on the size of the arena or upon the destructive assumptions which form its walls. Few observe that mankind is attuned to this planet and to tidal forces which resonate in and around it. The word lunacy did not enter our language by accident. Okay. One of those lunatic tidal forces appears to make us prefer small and comforting arenas, places which do not dwarf us by their immensity or by their dangerous unknowns. We prefer the tranquil pond to the perilous rapids. But the science fiction writers and ecologists keep saying, "You're already into the rapids, buddy. What are you going to do now?" Survival decisions, and that's at the core of ecological concern, require us to refuse to be confined in the systems which our ancestors gave us. Just a couple more things here. Let's look at the dynamics of the energy flow through our system. Let's examine the connections, the seams. In each, the individual is the ultimate cog, abandoned in his solitary despair, yet the species remains at the mercy of this individual. We are surfboard riders on an infinite sea, and the waves around us have changed. This is the lesson of ecological science fiction. Regain our balance and teach our young how to balance. There we go. So it's just a few wee things I just wanted to kind of read. I suppose some of it's out of context a little bit, but some of it's relevant to this chapter. And there's Joseph Smith saying, howdy, howdy. So it's, as always, we kind of try to open up with a little bit of stuff that just from Frank himself, etc. And the beginning of this book also has a dedication. By the way, there's no prologue here. And I'm going to say I'm hoping. I've got several. We've realized that there's a lot of different. There's different versions of Dune Messiah, especially in terms of prologues and epilogues. But as far as I know, there is no prologue to this book. I've got 4 different. I've got 5 actually. I have an electronic copy as well. 5 different editions of this book, and none of them have a prologue. So I'm really hoping someone's not going to tell me that there is one, because that was quite an interesting thing. So this begins with a dedication for Bev, Frank Herbert's wife. There again, we'll see another dedication to her in one of the later books as well. Pardon me. Out of the wonderful commitment of our love, and to share her beauty and wisdom, for she truly inspired this book. So there we go. Beverly Herbert is a massive influence on the Dune series, especially the construction and motivations of the and actions of the female characters. And I often think that it's her hand really that brings a lot of the strong feminist ideals and approaches, if you representations of female characters to this book at these books at that time. I always think of it very much as Bev's hand in it. So here we go. Here's our first epigraph, folks. We're ready to go. Let me just grab the book, just in case anybody spots any wee mistakes or anything like that. Let me know. Anybody's got any wee comments or questions? Fire away. So we're going to approach this bit by bit, just to show you what we've done, by the way, very quickly so far. Oh goodness. I shouldn't have read. Okay, shouldn't have really done that, but let's just watch the other shoulder. This is what we've done so far. Ugh, they're quite heavy. This is the amount of. These are quite chunky notebooks, and we've filled them with notes and your comments and questions and things, all sorts of things. We're being really, we're really taking these books apart, and there's an awful lot of your guys' work in these books. So we've got our new, we've bought 2 new ones. We're estimating this book club will probably take 3 to 4 notebooks, and I think it's good. The only good thing about Dune Messiah is that it was, in that sense of taking notes, it was the shortest of the Dune books. So there we go. So as usual, just to show you, this is what we're doing. Oh, let me just tidy that up. But there we are. I always do a wee kind of doodle. If you can see it, give it a wee bit of color, and I'll put a wee bit of green and blue in there to show the. I'm not a particularly good artist or anything like that. I'm just a doodler. But this is the way we work. Then we, off we go. We start making notes, highlighting things, and identifying what we don't know, any odd words, anything like that, to help us better understand this book. And of course, we read each chapter as we go. So here's our first epigraph. Just to be clear, our time frame within this is 9 years forward from the events in Dune Messiah. And our locus here, our location, is the twins' quarters in Sietch Tabr. So epigraph 1 is, Muad'Dib's teachings have become the playground of scholastics, of the superstitious and the corrupt. He taught a balanced way of life, a philosophy with which a human can meet problems arising from an ever-changing universe. He said, humankind is still evolving in a process which will never end. He said, this evolution moves on changing principles which are known only to eternity. How can corrupted reasoning play with such an essence? I wrote easily. And our first epigraph is taken from the words of the Mentat Duncan Idaho. And also, really, we need to point out that it's not from the Mentat hate. So hate has now, as we know at the end of the Dune Messiah hate, the Duncan Idaho Gula has broke its conditioning, if you like, for want of a better word, and the personality of Duncan Idaho has returned, complete with all the gifts that the Thraelaxu have given him. So here we have a text, words of the Mentat Duncan Idaho, and we're going to get started. There's Bojack Harkness, and I actually have an original first print of this one to read out of. Wow, excellent, Bojack. I've got the only one that I have a first. Well, I've got the first edition of Dune, if you like, in the magazine form. But the only one that I actually think I have is I believe I have a first edition of Heretics of Dune over there in hardback. That's about it, I think, because I'm a big secondhand bookshop buyer, you know. But unfortunately, when I work at books, they tend to get badly damaged, you know. Unfortunately, just to show you this one, I've worked with it before. I don't know if you can see that it's held together with with the sellotape around it, etc. And you know, you can tell how much somebody enjoys a book by how wrecked the spine is. Unfortunately for me, I've worked at quite a lot of books that can sustain the abuse that I give them, if you like. But the Dune books are consistently the one set of books that when I write, take notes and etc., that they fall apart. Which is quite sad. But whenever I went to start the very first Dune book club, it was actually this edition of Dune that I was going to work with, the original Dune. And I opened it up and it just fell to pieces in my hands, and the maps fell out, and it was just ridiculous. But that's good. Yeah, it's excellent to have a nice copy. If I have a nice copy of the book, I do have a lovely copy of Dune, for example, that I will not touch, will not write on at all. You know. So let's get our copy of the book open. I'm starting to cool down a wee bit here. It's getting so muggy here today. We've had a really rubbish summer here in Northern Ireland. It's just been naff. It's been warm with no sunshine, pretty much just lots of overcast. Overcast cloud, really. So here we go. So our location is. Oh, that's not working very well. Our location is Sietch Tabr. Oh, sorry, folks. There's the dogs. Hopefully they'll calm down a wee bit. We're at the edge of the countryside here, so we tend to get wee foxes and hedgehogs and all sorts of wee things like that running by, and out they go and chase them. We've kind of what we call the hedgehog highway here. So let me just get a wee cigarette made. So a spot of light appeared on the deep red rug which covered the raw rock of the cave floor. The light glowed without apparent source, having its existence only on the red fabric surface woven of spice fiber. A questing circle about 2 centimeters in diameter. Let me just check that I make a mistake there already. No, I didn't. I just repeated a word, that's all. Where are we? Sometimes when I'm writing my notes, I can be a wee bit like Ash from the Evil Dead series. You know, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, that kind of thing. I can get distracted easily. Sorry about that. So a questing circle about 2 centimeters in diameter, it moved erratically, now elongated, now an oval. Encountering the deep green side of a bed, it leaped upward, folded itself across the bed's surface. Very much a visual start to this chapter. There's some nice writing here by Frank, by the way, right off the bat. Good alliteration. It's slightly poetic in a way. It's the first verse in this first paragraph. In this book is not prosaic. So beneath the green covering lay a child with rusty hair, face still round with baby fat, a generous mouth, a figure lacking the lean sparseness of Fremen tradition, but not as water fat, as an off-worlder. As the light passed across close, small bird, the light winked out. Now there was only faint behind it, a reassuring drip, drip, drip of water collecting in a catch basin from the windstill far above the cave. if I had water dripping like that now, as much as it's reassuring and we get that with the Fremen, I think that would drive me nuts all night. I wouldn't find make me run to the loo. So we have this first little bit with sight, if you like, where we're giving a visual, this light moving around. We've got red and green colors here. Red suggestive of danger, of course. Green within the Dune series tends to represent life and death, I think, is a good way of putting it. The life that comes from death, if you like. But of course, the planet's becoming green here as well. And then we move to the sounds, exploring our senses within the first chapter. Now there was only the sound of, we did that again, sorry, even breathing and faint behind it, a reassuring drip, drip, drip of water collecting in a catch basin from the windstill far above the cave. Again, the light appeared in the chamber, slightly larger, a few lumens brighter. This time there was a suggestion of source and movement to it. A hooded figure filled the arched doorway of the chambers, at the chamber's edge, and the light originated there. Once more, the light flowed around the chamber, testing, questing. There was a sense of menace in it, a restless dissatisfaction. So already we've got a bit of tension here. I've actually got to say something here, folks, just tonight, in relation to the content of this chapter. That obviously, for anybody who's popping in, we're going to be looking at a chapter where basically we have an adult human with a knife who's going to possibly murder 2 children. And just the timing of this, etc. I don't know if anybody's seen the news. We're not kind of we plan to be here, etc. this time, but there's been a very, very bad tragedy within over in England, with an awful lot of children stabbed, etc., etc. So it's just that we're going to be discussing stuff like this here in this chapter. And it's to do with our book club, and it's part of the story. We're not doing it for any other reason. And just to say what has happened over in Southport in England is absolutely horrific. My thoughts certainly are with the families, etc., etc. I feel so bad for them. It's absolutely horrible. So I just thought I'd make that very clear, just before we go any further, folks. Now, bear with me 1 wee second. This is, and if here we have 2 children basically sleeping. This is Stilgar, of course. The menace here, restless dissatisfaction, the light moving around the faces. We're building tension here already. And something that Frank does really well. I'll also say that there's stuff in this chapter, by the way. Now, I've just had a wee quick flick at the back. Again, I'm going to be reading 1 chapter at a time. And I knew previously with Dune Messiah, eventually it just got a hold of it. I have to read on. But I like to come at this with, it's been a long time since I've read Children of Dune. I've read it several times, but it's not fresh in my head. And so I'm reading it 1 chapter at a time. And that's how we're going to, as always with the Dune Club, going to proceed. Excuse me. Right, so building tension. It avoided the sleeping child, paused on the gridded air inlet at an upper corner, probed a bulge in the green and gold wall hangings, which softened the enclosing rock. And so here we have our hooded figure. Presently, the light winked out. And that's the second time we've had that phrase, by the way. The light winked out. That's the second time. Nice little bit of repetition. As I'm sure some of you probably know me, there are what you would call rhetorical techniques, and we've got a few of them going on within this chapter with Frank. As I said, I've looked at the Dune books in many, many different ways. The way I'm approaching this is I'm not looking at it in any particular thematic way as we do this book club. Though we're going to try and point out absolutely everything in relation to those themes, etc. But I'm looking at this particularly as the way I'm going at it is I'm looking at Frank as a wordsmith here, as an author, and I'm looking at his language really, and how he works just in terms of that. That's my kind of core interest here, if you like, because I love words and language, and we've got some interesting stuff here in this chapter already to look at today. So presently, let's see. Presently, the light winked out. The hooded figure moved with a betraying swish of fabric, took up a station at one side of the arched doorway. Anyone aware of the routine here in Siege Tabar would have suspected at once that this must be Stilgar, Naib of the Siege, guardian of the orphan twins, who would one day take up the mantle of their father, Paul Muad'Dib. Stilgar often made night inspections of the twins' quarters, always going first to the chamber where Ghanima slept and ending here in the adjoining room, where he could reassure himself that Leto was not threatened. Now, it's interesting that we've built tension already. That what is this? Is this an assassin come to kill these children? And then the shift immediately, no, this is their guardian. And you think that should deflate our tension a little bit. But that's not quite the case here, as we'll see. Oops, hang on. I'm getting spelled something there on that book. And I just need to grab a wee highlighter here, just because I missed a couple of wee things. And I'm just going to highlight them as I go. There we go. Apologies. Now, this is Stilgar's thoughts. I'm an old fool. Stilgar thought. And there we go. We were talking about the fool saint, etc. The fool, again, is one of these archetypes. Sorry about that, folks. Ladies, behave. Come on in. Oh, they're barky tonight, aren't they? Have to get them out later. Sorry about that, folks. Noodles. So, yeah, we have Stilgar. One of the things we talk about. Sorry, tell you what, folks, give me a wee second. I'm going to bring the doggies in because they're barky tonight. I'll be right back. Right, ladies. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Our noodles taking the walk of shame. They've been hyper today. Sorry about that, folks. But yeah, where were we? Stilgar thoughts. I'm an old fool, Stilgar thought. And again, we talk about these archetypes that permeate throughout the Dune series. And I think one of the interesting things that we've always pointed out is that several characters go through different appear as different archetypes, or have different aspects of those archetypes. And the fool is a great one, I think. To be truly wise, one must be foolish, as I think I've pointed out before. And the way that Herbert uses this projector, I think, is quite interesting within this chapter. So we're going to see a wee bit about this. So he fingered the cold surface of the light projector before restoring it to the loop in his belt sash. The projector irritated him, even while he depended on it. The thing was a subtle instrument of the Imperium, a device to detect the presence of large living bodies. It had shown only the sleeping children in the royal bedchambers. So I think this is a bit of a hark back to the Harkonnen that controlled the Hunter-Seeker in Dune. It was kind of walled up, wasn't he, for some time? And much as Thufir missed this is the sort of device. And I think we see this kind of thing in the we actually see this in David Lynch's Dune movie, I believe. This kind of projector. I think it's used, isn't it? It's used on, not quite sure, but there's a kind of thing with the shattered mapes, isn't it? Kind of dodging the light as they move this thing along, scanning the different people, the household staff, I believe. Pardon me. A device to detect the presence of large living bodies. It had shown only the sleeping children in the royal bedchambers. We get Stilgar's thoughts and emotions here. Stilgar knew his thoughts and emotions were like a light. He could not still a restless inner projection. Some greater power controlled that movement. It projected him into this moment where he sensed the accumulated peril. Here lay the magnet for dreams of grandeur throughout the known universe. Here lay temporal riches, secular authority, and that most powerful of all magical talismans. the divine authenticity of Muad'Dib's religious bequest. In these twins, Leto and his sister Ghanima, an awesome power focused. While they lived, Muad'Dib, though dead, lived in them. Now, pardon me, projection is a thing, is a word that is a term that has lots of meanings. And of course, the projection to project light, if you like. If I just look up the wiki here, projection comes from the Latin word proecere, which is to throw forth, and then that would have moved on to projectio, if you like, as the word developed. So projections, of course, within the Dune series can be an estimate or forecast of the future. They could be the presentation of an image on a surface, which is what we've got this going on here. There can be a mental image viewed as reality, ability to make a sound heard at a distance, etc., etc. And I've just written C definitions. But we also have psychological projection. Oh, I should have just quickly hit Wikipedia there. I just would hit C wiki for stuff like this. Bear with me a second, folks. There we go. So, just reading from Wikipedia, psychological projection is a defense mechanism of alterity concerning inside content mistaken to be coming from the outside other. It forms the basis of empathy by the projection of personal experiences to understand someone else's subjective world. In its malignant forms, it is a defense mechanism in which the ego defends itself against disowned and highly negative parts of the self by denying their existence in themselves and attributing them to others, breeding misunderstanding and causing untold interpersonal damage. Projection incorporates blame shifting and can manifest as shame dumping. Projection has been described as an early phase of introjection. So that's just the blurb, if you like. From Wikipedia under the term psychological projection. Interestingly enough, it has a few kind of historical precursors there, etc. Let's see. It says 1841, Ludwig Feuerbach was the first Enlightenment thinker to employ this concept as the basis of a systematic critique of religion. It also says here that the Babylonian Talmud notes the human tendency towards projection and warns against it. Do not taunt your neighbor with the blemish you yourself have. And in the New Testament, Jesus warns against projection. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So there's a fair bit about that for anybody who's interested in that, in terms of psychology and psychoanalysis, etc. But I think that's actually what we have Stilgar doing here. And it's interesting that we also have we've got this kind of simile, if you like. That's the wrong word, isn't it? Hang on. What am I thinking on? Bear with me a wee second. Bear with me a second, folks. I'm having a brain fart here. No, it is a bit of a simile. Yes, that is what I'm thinking of. Well, we've got the use of the same word actually here. And I think this is a little thing that runs through this chapter. So we have this projection of this light, and then the inner and outer projection is the wee thing that I've written here. So he knew his thoughts and emotions were like a light. He could not still a restless inner projection. Some greater power, there we go, controlled that movement. It projected him into this moment where he sensed the accumulated peril. So here the magnet for dreams of grandeur throughout the known universe. Here lay the magnet for dreams of grandeur throughout the known universe. Here lay temporal riches, secular authority, and that most powerful of all magical talismans, the divine authenticity of Muad'Dib's religious bequest. That's the twins. This is what they are in that sense, if you like. And they have this awesome power. While they lived, Muad'Dib see projection as a definition. There are tons of different types of projection, but I think that's the ones that we're talking about here. Now, the twins, let's see. They were not merely 9-year-old children. So that's our dating, if you like. We know how far ahead in the story we are. Bear with me a second, folks. Trying to find something. So my office is a bit of a state at the minute because we're actually just moving different furniture and moving things around in here. And again, bear with me 1 wee quick second. Sorry about this. Yeah, the new furniture is up. Hopefully, maybe possibly from next week. I'm going to be trying to do this show. I've got a lovely big sofa here from a more comfortable chair. Hopefully, that'll be nice. So let's see. They were not 9-year-old children. They were a natural force, objects of veneration and fear. They were the children of Paul Atreides, who had become Muad'Dib, the Mahdi of all Fremen. Muad'Dib had ignited an explosion of humanity. Fremen had spread from this planet in a jihad, carrying their fervour across the human universe in a wave of religious government, whose scope and ubiquitous authority had left its mark on every planet. And here we have Stilgar's thoughts. Yet these children of Muad'Dib are flesh and blood, Stilgar thought. 2 simple thrusts of my knife would still their hearts. Their water would return to the tribe. There we go. And this is where the menace comes from, I think, from the beginning of the chapter here. The consideration of this consideration of Stilgar here. And this is where we get this. It came from the left hand of the damned, not the right hand of the blessed. And hands, as I'm sure you all know, for anybody who's not joined us before, hands, the use of hands and imagery, etc., and representation within the Dune series are incredibly important, and they represent agency. The Veda King. Sorry, always love that when is it what do you call this? Everett McGill does the Veda King moment, and David Lynch's Dune. But yes, hands. In this case, we have a kind of different association. The left hand of the damned, sinister, if you like, not the right hand of the blessed, which would be Dexter. The Ayat and Burhan of life held few mysteries for him. Once he'd been proud to think of himself as Fremen, think of the desert as a friend. To name his planet Dune in his thoughts and not Arrakis, as it was marked on all the Imperial star charts. Now, that's quite interesting. That was the reason, by the way, I was reading that little bit that made me go to jump over to Lawrence of Arabia to scribble down that quote. And as I said, it's it's Alec Guinness playing Faisal I of Iraq. But no Arab loves the desert. We love water and green trees. There's nothing in the desert. No man needs nothing. And I just thought, in comparison to Stilgar, I thought that was a kind of an interesting thing to bring to the party, if you like. To think of the desert as a friend. And of course, we have that idea within this, the friendly desert, if you like, Of course, Dune to the Fremen, Arrakis to the Imperium. So Ayat and Burhan are, and of course, this is another wee thing that we point out generally at the start of these books, is that the only Dune book that has the terminology of the Imperium in it is actually Dune itself. And I think we've covered pretty much every odd word in this book. It's tricky sometimes to realize have we covered it before or not, because not all the terms do appear within the terminology of the Imperium. Of course, Ayat are the signs of life, Burhan are the proofs of life, if you like. And we have had a wee chat about them before, probably way back in June. So as much as we don't like to, I suppose we do like to repeat ourselves, don't we? Repetition is useful in learning. I probably repeat myself quite a lot. How simple things were when our Messiah was only a dream, he thought. By finding our Mahdi, we loosed upon the universe countless messianic dreams. Every people subjugated by the jihad now dreams of a leader to come. In other words, a Messiah. I think that's quite interesting. I think it's also quite ironic that uh, very ironic. I think by desiring, by dreaming for a messiah, and then getting one, which is unleashed upon the universe in such a deadly and destructive fashion, it leads everyone else who's subjugated by your messiah to desire their own, if you like. Who will come and save us? Who will be our messiah to save us from their messiah? This kind of thing. And I think it's kind of funny. Stilgar glanced into the darkened bedchamber. If my knife liberated all those people, would they make a messiah of me? So it's whatever danger he perceives within these children, all it would take is two thrusts of his knife to kill both of them. Would they make a messiah out of me for doing this? I've written next to it, no, because messiahs are not assassins, and that's what he would be, I think. And people aren't tend to be not fond of infanticides, if you see what I mean. Uh, hmm. Leto could be heard stirring restlessly in his bed. And here we go. Here's the first thing I've got a bit of a bother with. Stilgar sighed, and he does that a couple of times as well. He had never known the Atreides grandfather whose name this child had taken. And I've written, no, that's not true. He did know it. And it depends on what we want to make of that, I think. Didn't really. No, he has. Of course, we know that Stilgar met Leto Atreides. It's an event in June, and the whole, all of that stuff. But they do meet each other. But this says he had never known the Atreides grandfather, whose name this child had taken. So Leto the Second, of course, technically Leto the Third, but we call him Leto the Second because the second Leto dies very young and does not rule, if you like. Pardon me, I think that's the way to look at it. But I've written next to this, no, and he did know him, and I'm wondering what you guys think of that. And again, well, we're down to this question: is particularly with the epigraph that we start off, is who is the far future historian writer of the Dune series? And we get different. We've had a good talk about the historians within the previous book, and we're going to see Farad'n, of course, become a historian within the Dune series. But the series goes past those characters, if you see what I mean. And there is a continuity to the language within the Dune novels that do suggest that there is some far future historian writing all of this. And I've actually started to contemplate that it could well be Duncan Idaho. Interestingly enough, because who's the only character that goes all the way through, if you see what I mean. It's interesting, but again, it's maybe it's supposed to just mean that he did, I barely knew him, if you know what I mean. I've lost my page. There we go. But I've read he had never known the Atreides grandfather. He did meet him, and they chatted, if you like, and worked stuff out. So I'm wondering, why is that there? Is it that our historian is incorrect again? That we have this aspect of historians and what they bring to this, that it's an history to be a historian is to inquire into things, to research, if you like. And you could have 100 historians working on one topic, and you get 100 different history books, if you see what I mean. I had never known the Atreides grandfather whose name this child had taken. My other consideration was possibly this, that because certain parts of this book were written at the time of Dune, that this is just simply a continuity error, a little mistake, if you like, within the text. It's possible because we've found tons of them so far, which has kind of made us question, really, the Herbert's estate's role in publishing these books, and the fact that they still let them go out in such bad shape, I think. And the Herbert estate needs an editor to sort the Dune series out properly, to fix these books in the way that they deserve, I think, So they said, why does Stilgar fear that the quality of rightness would skip a generation? Sounds like a Bene Gesserit concern, thinking about genetic heritage. That's a good point, Cynthia. And some of Stilgar's thoughts here are, I'm going to point out another thing in a wee bit. It's a good question. And maybe it's the unknown, I suppose, about them, or the fact that Muad'Dib's within them. I think it's the fact that, well, I suppose we're going to get a bit of a chat about it just in terms of Stilgar's thinking here. But at the same time, this Leto has helped his father kill, Skytail previously as a baby. That they're preborn. That there's an awesome, as I pointed in these twins, Leto and his sister Ghanima, an awesome power focused, and while they lived, Muad'Dib, though dead, lived in them. I don't know. I think he's also questioning his thoughts. This chapter also kind of works as a bit of a recap, if you like, for us, in a much less obvious way than Dune Messiah did. But I think it's the things that are attached to the children, the secular authority, the temporal riches, and the divine as it says here, the most powerful of all magical talismans, divine authenticity of Muad'Dib's religious bequest. But they're not just children; they're a natural force, venerated and feared. Stilgar's motivations here are quite interesting, I think. But the igniting, these children already were flesh and blood. I said, so was he. Muad'Dib had ignited an explosion of humanity. Fremen had spread from this planet in a jihad carrying their fervor across the human universe in a wave of religious government whose scope and ubiquitous authority had left its mark on every planet. It's a good question, Sylvia. I'm not sure I have an answer for you yet, to be honest with you. But he's definitely concerned and has fears here, and I think it'll tie into a few other things. Carlos is saying, imagine if he knew about their Harkonnen heritage. And Chaya saying, Stilgar's still waking up to the world he has helped birth. Intent versus results can be quite sobering. Well, I suppose we're going to see his hand in it, aren't we, in this chapter? And I suppose it's maybe the consequences of Muad'Dib's rule. That if this is the next generation, that this is beyond the father, this is beyond Paul, that that there's something else altogether. It says just under it, but many said the moral strength of Muad'Dib had come from that source. That's Leto. Now, so this is the Atreides grandfather whose name this child had taken. We've all had a good look at Leto Atreides. He's not a nice man at all. He's no different, really, than the Baron. In fact, Leto Atreides is a bit of a monster. To suggest that Paul's moral compass comes from Leto is a bad thing, I think. But he had never known the Atreides grandfather. But I'm sure he's heard stories, if you see what I mean. And of course, there's a shrine to Leto Atreides on Dune, isn't there? Would that terrifying quality of rightness skip a generation now? There we go. That's what we're asking about. Stilgar found himself unable to answer the question, and I've put, the irony. That was to do with the quality of rightness that is perceived within Leto Atreides, Leto the First. And again, I've always found it interesting how people look at Leto Atreides. And in many ways, I suppose. We often talk about the classical influence, various ways to look at Leto, but probably a bit like Agamemnon. There's characters within him, the inversion of the name Leto, and Leto tends to send her children for everyone else's. If you see what I mean, the Apollo and Artemis. But I've put all the irony there because sorry, I forgot to turn the page there. Cynthia, when you were asking me that, I hadn't got to that wee bit there. The quality of rightness terrifying quality of rightness, skip a generation now. And I suppose in some ways, virtue can be completely perverted, can't they? Taken to an extreme just as much as a vice can. But well, yeah, it's that many said the moral strength of Muad'Dib had come from that source. Again, we've looked into Paul's morality in many ways, and as much as he's the hero, the good guy, whatever you want to, he's not that good. But certainly Leto I think Leto is a bit of a monster. So would that terrifying quality of rightness skip a generation? Maybe it's in Paul that it skipped the generation. And that Leto the Second is going to be every bit as monstrous as Leto the First. It's a great question. And I think Chaya makes a good point. I suppose Stilgar has often had kind of blinkers on when it comes to his how does it put, his sorcerer friend and his witch sister, something like that. Stilgar is really the lens that we get to view and get to learn the lessons that Paul Atreides wishes to teach him in Dune Messiah, because he doesn't want a servile follower. He wants his friend. He doesn't want them to worship them. And so I suppose through Stilgar, Paul does a lot of explaining, if you like, particularly that scene with Korba. Where the discussion about Hitler and Genghis Khan, and just they're nothing compared to me, this kind of thing. So very much, I suppose, as much as Stilgar is stalwart with the Atreides within his loyalty, etc., in Dune Messiah, I think and we're straight into the new book, I think we're starting to see his doubts here. As Chaya puts it, he's waking up to the world that he has helped birth, and he's looking at his own role in this. And again, this is possibly why he's considering this as this murdering these two children at this point, because he could put an end to it. And at this point, we already know billions of people are dead because of this. It's a hell of a body count, every world has been subjugated. Every world now yearns for its own Messiah. And are they going to see that in these two twins? And of course, as I always like to point out, that the first three Dune books are, I suppose, in relation to the messianic aspect of it, Herbert is telling us to be very careful what you wish for. When we get to the God Emperor, that's where I warned you, I did it again. But this is much, much worse. And if this is the Leto the Second who will become the God Emperor, and he will be much, much worse. But the God Emperor has a wonderfully strange sense of morality about him, doesn't he? Something saying we could perhaps read this as another projection, as you mentioned. Is Stilgar wondering if the quality of rightness his own father had would skip and lead to a murderous decision of his own? That's a great point, Cynthia. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of self-doubt here, isn't there? It's in this chapter. It's not a particularly long chapter. The first few chapters aren't, but we'll get to see where Stilgar goes with this. But his thoughts on this, where do these kind of thoughts come from? This is how he's viewing it. It's like an inner projection. Some greater power is controlling this in him. And is it this light that's projecting it within himself, if you like, metaphorically speaking, that makes him wonder all the things that he could have here if he just snuffed these kids out, And the temporal riches, the secular authority, these are just finite things, if you like, but that's wealth and power. And then the magical talisman is the religious authority that goes with it, that makes it so powerful. But they're loved and feared, And of course, we also get this belief here that Paul is dead but lives on in his children. But yeah, there's a lot of self-doubt here for introspection. And he's looking. I suppose we have to talk about the Fremen as being casual killers, but we'll see something about that they're not that casual. Certainly, well, particularly when it comes to children here, I suppose. But yeah, would that terrifying quality of rightness skip a generation now? And he's unable to answer the question. He doesn't know. And it's a good question for us, and it's great that Cynthia's brought it up actually. But it's a question for the reader to ask, I think, and that's why he doesn't give us an answer. And that's also a motif of Frank's, isn't it? He doesn't like to give us the answers. But here we get his own role, and here are Stilgar's thoughts now. He thought, Sietch Tabr is mine. I rule here. I am a naib of the Fremen. Without me, there would have been no Muad'Dib. These twins now, through Chani, their mother and my kinsman, my blood flows in their veins. I am there with Muad'Dib and Chani and all the others. And that's an interesting how other memory works. That starts to ask all sorts of questions. And he asks himself a question here. What have we done to the universe? What have we done? Is often that question is often, it's almost a cliche, isn't it, within fiction and cinema and drama, etc. The whole what have you done, or what have I done? This kind of thing is usually uttered after something really, really bad. It's seldom, what have you done is seldom uttered when someone's done something quite good and clever, But again, no explanation. He could not explain why such thoughts came to him in the night and why they made him feel so guilty. So Stilgar has got guilt here, and he crouched within his hooded robe. He's obviously feeling bad about something, and argue. He's been made to feel. He's been instructed by Muad'Dib in the death and suffering that his jihad has brought to the universe. And here we get this lovely thing, I think. This is bang on. Reality was not at all like a dream. The friendly desert, which once had spread from pole to pole, was reduced to half its former size. The mystic paradise of spreading greenery filled him with dismay. Let's make that. Sorry. It was not like the dream. And as his planet changed, he knew he had changed. He had become a far more subtle person than the one-time Sietch chieftain. He was aware now of many things, of statecraft and profound consequences in the smallest of decisions. And I suppose this is going to echo the ecological idea. It's one of the wee things that I wanted to read out there quickly at the beginning. Yet he felt this knowledge and subtlety as a thin veneer covering an iron core of simpler, more deterministic awareness. And that older core called out to him, pleaded within him for a return to cleaner values. A lot of this echoes strongly from Lawrence of Arabia, I have to say. The cleanness of the desert. There's language here. Interesting. That was probably because I just watched it last night. The subtleties of politics and stuff like this. Cleaner values, old-fashioned values. He's become a subtler creature, a subtle deceptive possibly than the one-time Sietch chieftain. I've made a wee note here. This is Denis Villeneuve's problem, by the way. The profound consequences in the smallest of decisions, and the alterations and changes and mucking around that he's done with the story will massively ripple down, I think. But yeah, I've made a wee note just to the projector and Stilgar, Arrakis and Stilgar is what I've made a note here, the core, if you like, and the change within the character, within the planet. If we have to consider the way he puts it here, by the way, within his thoughts, that the friendly desert, which had once spread from pole to pole, was reduced to half its former size. Pardon me, the desert covers the entire planet apart from the poles, so this is half the planet. Pardon me. And This is the dream that they've been fed, by the way. This is the Fremen dream. This is what they wanted. And this dream is felt, it's not like the dream. And you go, well, hang on. I thought that you just wanted Arrakis to be green and, Eden like paradise. And they're kind of halfway there. And it doesn't feel right. He feels guilty. He's got dismay. He's aware of the profound consequences in the smallest of decisions. And I think, as we were talking about, these things that have crept up within Stilgar's thoughts, if you like, that ultimately he's going to look at the older version of himself, if you like, what's simply the described as the core here. I think the older core called out to him. This is his older self, or sorry, his younger self, if you like, going back in time, where he hasn't become a subtle creature, where he's very much a Fremen Siege chieftain, and is not subtle, is kind of a very blunt, honest, that blunt honesty, if you like, within the Fremen, I think, Chayarif is saying, great technique here, reintroducing the tenuous fight to retain humanity by leadership, a quality the masses both crave and repel. They want just leaders who are also gods. Yeah, and this is, I suppose, you're quite right. This is that Dune Messiah is the inversion, and we're back with a lot of the stuff that's in Dune. We'll get lots of repetition of ideas and these kind of ideas, these spiraling plans within plans within plans, all of this stuff. It's a great technique, as you were saying. It's Herbert's way of going about his business in these books. I think he's very subtle. It's not repetitive, if that makes sense in that way. But he really does bring these themes and ideas back in. And yeah, I like the writing in this chapter, by the way, a lot. I'm very pleased to say I find no mistakes within the writing, if you like, and punctuation. But absolutely. And I suppose it's gone. I think there's maybe a degree of empathy and sympathy, possibly, that Stilgar has here, because if we think about what you're saying there, Chaya, him and the Fremen knew what it was like to want a Messiah, and now the suggestion is that everyone out there wants one now to save them from his particular Messiah, if you like. Every planet yearns for humanity. Equality of the masses, both. They want leaders who are also gods. Yeah, they want someone to come and save them. And ultimately, I suppose it's going to be Leto II is going to come, and by saving them, he's going to destroy almost all of them, isn't he? But these core values that Stilgar has, I suppose, in many ways, he has changed. But how much does he retain of his true self? I think is kind of interesting here. The morning sounds of the siege began intruding upon his thoughts. People were beginning to move in the cavern. He felt a breeze against his cheeks. People were going out through the door seals into the pre-dawn darkness. The breeze spoke of carelessness as it spoke of the time. Poor water discipline, as I'm sure we all know. Warren dwellers no longer maintained the tight water discipline of the old days. I really should just keep reading, shouldn't I? Why should they? When rain had been recorded on this planet, when clouds were seen, when 8 Fremen had been inundated and killed by a flash flood in a wadi. Until that event, the word drowned had not existed in the language of Dune, but this was no longer Dune. This was Arrakis, and it was the morning of an eventful day. Now, here we go. A wadi we've talked about before. Sitting watching Lawrence of Arabia, I heard this word almost every 10 minutes. So a wadi, again, we've covered most of this stuff, but just to be thorough, is a valley, ravine, or channel that is dry except in rainy season. It's an Arabic word. In Arabic, it's wadi, and I believe in Hebrew, it's also wadi. The Spanish equivalent, I believe, that's used in America is the word arroyo, Arroyo. And I've written here, see Wikipedia for morphology and processes. Quite interesting. However, that's not my bother here. I've got a drown. Been told stuff like this before. Until that event, the word drowned had not existed in the language of Dune. Oh, and by the way, we've got our first little, as we do our book, we keep a body count, don't we? On there's 8 Fremen who have been drowned. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is simply I don't buy it. I don't buy that the Fremen wouldn't. We've talked about a couple of things about language not being quite correct within the book, and I don't buy the fact that the Fremen wouldn't have a word for drowned, because they drown the sand trout, first of all. Secondly, the way they store water, to suggest that no child has ever accidentally drowned, nobody's ever accidentally fallen in the thing, this kind of thing, I just don't buy it at all. If you see what I mean, it doesn't quite make sense to me. The word drowned had not existed in the language of Dune. Within the Fremen language, again, if we understand the linguistic development of the Fremen down throughout the millennia, I don't see why this word would not be there. It just doesn't make sense, especially when they have a practice of drowning an animal. Well, I'm sorry, the worm is an animal plant hybrid, but they drown them. And if we look at the terminology of the Imperium now, that's different because this is the imperial language, if you like. But if we consider it an imperial language, it has an awareness of the Fremen, the terminology of the Imperium. Let's just have a look. Water of life is what we're going to look up here, folks. And water is a big part of their culture, so why not have a word for drown? It doesn't really make sense. Water of life is an illuminating poison, specifically that liquid exhalation of a sandworm produced at the moment of its death from drowning. That's in Dune. Which is changed within the body of a reverend mother to become the narcotic used in the Siege Tau orgy, an awareness spectrum narcotic. So I don't know if you agree with me or not. It's just being a bit picky, but I think it's a little bit. I don't think that the Fremen would not have a word for drowned. Saying that, it's also quite possible. The Hellenes, for example, the Hellenic peoples. If you go back to ancient Greece, look stuff like Homer, the Greeks didn't have a word for blue. They call it bronze. So it is also possible, but just I think with the obsessive nature with water on this planet, I just don't buy that word would not exist within the language of the Fremen. Oh, got a few more comments here just before we go on. Let's have a look. China saying this was the crux of Paul's torment in Messiah and foreshadows Leto's conversion. The generation has rolled forward, but the issue remains for the next era of leaders. City Fremen and Imperium wouldn't know of giant catch basins and drowning the worms. Fremen may have the word, but not Dune at large. Yeah, it's just something I thought about. Giant catch basins and drowning the worms. Fremen may have the word, but no, not Dune at large. Yeah, as I said, just within the Fremen culture, but well, I suppose the culture, the Fremen of the Siege, if you like, and just the nature of life, accidents, just that kind of thing. Or unless they would use an alternative word like, we find so and so in the water, he suffocated in the water. Maybe they would use an alternative term, I think, but I find it hard to believe that no Fremen ever drowned ever. If you see what I mean, and to be honest with you, I'll tell you something. You don't need water to drown. So I think I told you about. I'm sure, as you all probably know, I've saved both my parents' lives, but I maybe didn't tell you how I saved my mother's life. But it was simply I had to get her. My mother's had what's called alpha-1 antitrypsin, which is an immunodeficiency in the lungs, and simply put, they fill with water, fluid, and you drown in your own lungs. And how I saved my mum's life, basically, Doctor's out to see her, and she's got about 5% lung capacity left. Can't wait for an ambulance. You need to go and go like a nut. And I did about 120 miles an hour with my mum in the passenger seat through this town to the hospital. Got her there and just in the nick of time. Had to charge through into accident emergency, and immediately get a tube down her throat and start. They took shitloads of water out of her, but that's drowning in your own lungs. That's just it happens. There's other ways to drown. If you see what I mean, Didn't Othim speak of seeing a man drown when he had a Fedikeen off-world when he handed? Yeah, I believe so. This aspect of being on other worlds and stuff like that and seeing things like that. Yeah, I believe so. And so you can come back. How do you explain it? And languages change and evolve. So the simple fact is, I suppose at the first point where any Fremen saw somebody drown, they'd have to come up with a word for it. If you see what I mean. It's just it's has not existed. It's a wee bit of an absolute, I suppose, in some ways. I just find it a wee bit hard to believe, and the fact that also, for example, the Fremen also speak Gaelic, and some of them in this case, even just translation, There's Bab saying, I'm off to get my bus, hoping to get back tonight. Otherwise, see you all next Thursday. Be well, y'all. We all deserve eudaimonia. We do indeed. Take it easy, Bab. Safe home. And thank you very much for joining us, as always. So here we get Stilgar's thoughts. He thought, Jessica, and again a shift, I suppose, here. Jessica, mother of Muad'Dib, was grandmother of these royal twins. Returns to our planet today. Did I write that? Didn't sound quite right. I probably got distracted. Let me just check that. No, that's bang on. Jessica, mother of Muad'Dib, was grandmother of these royal twins. Returns to our planet today. That doesn't quite flow well, does it? Maybe time for I suppose an addition check. I think that's missing a word. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't flow right. I think it should be Jessica, mother of Muad'Dib, who was grandmother of these royal twins. It just doesn't quite flow right, does it? Let me just check a different one. Was grandma? Nope. Let's try this one. Bear with me a second, folks. Mother Muad'Dib was grandmother of these royal twins, returns to our planet today. Mother Muad'Dib was grandmother of these royal twins, returns to. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just thought it didn't flow right. I thought there's a word missing there. Jessica, mother of Muad'Dib, who was grandmother to these royal twins, returns to our planet today. Don't know, there's just something not quite right about it. It doesn't flow right. There's something that's needs another word there. Why does she end her self-imposed exile at this time? Why does she leave the softness and security of Caladan for the dangers of Arrakis? And there were other worries. I think it's worries. So he's got guilt. So far, we've got dismay and worry. And they're qualities that we certainly do not associate, I think, with Stilgar. Certainly not up to this point, I think. Would she sense Stilgar's doubts? And here we get to see them now. She was a Bene Gesserit witch, graduate of the Sisterhood's deepest training and a reverend mother in her own right. Such females were acute and they were dangerous. Would she order him to fall upon his own knife as the Ummah protector of Leat Kynes had been ordered? Would I obey her? He wondered. Now, I got a wee bit of a bother with that as well. Would she order him to fall upon his own knife as the Ummah protector of Leat Kynes had been ordered? So this is Uliat we're talking about. And the term Ummah, I suppose, again, let's just grab Dune. We've talked about it before. Liet Kynes is named after Uliet, and this is the guy who's sent to kill Pardo Kynes' father in the first appendix of Dune, which is actually a prologue to the entire series. Let me just have a wee look here. Uma, within the terminology of the Imperium, again, we've covered a lot of this stuff previously, but just to remind yourselves, is one of the Brotherhood of Prophets a term of scorn in the Imperium, meaning any wild person given to fanatical prediction. A term of scorn in the Imperium, meaning any wild person given to fanatical prediction. So Uliet is not ordered to fall upon his knife. Maybe just this is the way that Stilgar is looking at it, but he's told to remove himself. While Pardo was trying to do a bit of teaching, he get out of my way, would you? And he throws himself upon his knife. He's not ordered to do it. And it's maybe just would she order him to fall on his knife the way that guy had done, but she'd just tell him to fall on his knife. I'm maybe not too sure. But it says as the Umar protector of Liet Kynes had been ordered. So again, this isn't quite right. And I'm wondering, is this our historian maybe not knowing things, not remembering things correctly? Who's writing this? I suppose. But that's the second little thing that doesn't seem quite correct. And they're tiny little things, aren't they? They're minuscule. They're nothing really to be noted or bothered about, but it's also something that's not true. But would I obey her, he wondered. And being Stilgar, I would say that Stilgar knows the story of Uliet better than certainly any of the Atreides, this kind of thing, Again and again, he cannot answer. He's got no answers for us. He could not answer that question. But now he thought about Liet Kynes, the planetologist who had first dreamed of transforming the planet-wide desert of Dune into the human supportive green planet which it was becoming. And surely this is Pardo's dream. Again, it certainly is Liet Kynes' dream, but Liet is part of Pardo's plan. So again, that's something else that's not quite making sense. They're tiny little things, and I'm wondering, has this got something to do with at the time when it was written, if you see what I mean? So if parts of this book were written before, we'll say between 1963 to 65, just the best guess, then this book isn't actually coming out, and it's in this form until 1976. So there's some time between it, and it's possible it's just we little things that get lost, or confused. But it's just another wee thing that just didn't quite make sense, Jessica says, I have Jessica, mother of Muad'Dib. So we look. And grandmother of these royal twins returns. Here we go. Right. I had one other copy that I didn't look at, actually. Thank you. Sorry, that was Cynthia. Yes, thank you, Cynthia. Yes, that's where I'm going with that, Chaya, by the way. Wasn't it the Umar protector of Pardo, not Liet? This is a mistake. This is the third mistake in terms of things that aren't true. I never knew Leto. Yes, you did. You did know him, albeit briefly. What else do we have there? Yeah. Thank you, Jessica, mother of Muad'Dib. What can I ask again, Cynthia? What copy you're working from? Is it a Berkeley one? Yeah. I've got 4 copies here that say was. Let me see, John and grandmother. Yeah, it should be, shouldn't it? It didn't. It did not flow right to me. Thank you very much. Jessica, mother of Muad'Dib and grandmother of these royal twins, returns to our planet today. Yeah, it really messed with the tenses, didn't it? I think. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Yeah. Yes, Berkeley Medallion, 1977. I'd love to get my hands on those. It seems that those are pretty good editions. Let's see, who have we got? That's got it all wrong. So that's what's that? That's Golance wrong. Golance again, wrong. Hodder, wrong. Who's publishing this? Is that Science Fiction? English language. And this one's also. What are you? Can't read that. Let me see. Sellotape on it. Yeah, New English Library as well. So I've got 5 different versions, plus one on. I checked. I had a wee nosy through the electronic copy. Am I ready? Yeah, sorry, that's Dune. Sorry, I've got 5 different versions of Children of Dune here, and they've all got the same mistake in it. You've got the Berkeley edition, and that's correct, I think. So sorry about that, folks, but we do pick out. We like to pick out mistakes in these books just for the purpose of correcting and trying to make it more easily understood, I suppose. But especially when things don't flow right, I tend to trip over them, if you see what I mean. And it's mainly because I'm reading them out loud. I think they just don't seem to flow right. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Yes, it seems, by the way, folks, that if you want to read really good editions of Dune, Cynthia, can I ask a question of you? Do the Berkeley Medallion editions go all the way to the end? Do they go to Chapter House and Heretics? Have you got all 6 books in those editions? I'd be very interested to know. But it seems to me, folks, that if you want a really good version of Dune that isn't riddled with mistakes, that's the one you've got to go for, I think. Then it starts to raise all sorts of questions in my head. Is that who's edited those, and why haven't these been edited? Especially when the Dune series is controlled by an estate. Doesn't seem to have. I'll check and let you know. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, it seems that you've got the best copies, Cynthia. Anytime we find it, your copies tend to have the correct versions. I think it's but we are that pedantic, aren't we? We just trip over one word and we go, hang on a minute, that can't be right, But yes, so I don't know if these are continuity errors that are possibly created by how do we look at it? So Dune's published in magazine format in 1963 and book format in 1965, and it's slightly altered, I suppose. But we can run with it. There's an 11 years or 13 years perhaps between some parts of this book being written and its actual publication in 1976. So yes, there are problems in this chapter straight off the bat. And they're little things. But again, could this be, I often wonder, could this be the historian not getting everything correct, if you see what I mean? It's very interesting. Oh, I'm melting here. Goodness gracious, folks. Cheers. Thank you very much, guys. But yes, indeed, Uliet is not ordered to fall on his knife. That does not happen. Uliet is told to remove himself. 2 words. That's it. And he goes, ee, and jumps and falls on his knife. No one orders him to do it. He's just told to go away. Protector of Leet kinds have been ordered. That's Pardo kinds. Chai is quite correct when she said, wasn't it the Protector of Pardo, not Leet? Absolutely. So I've written here my wee notes. It's Uliet and Pardo, not what happened. And of course, he wondered, would I obey her? He could not answer. But that question, but now he thought about Leet Kynes, the planetologist who had first dreamed of transforming the planet-wide desert of Dune into the human-supported green planet which it was becoming. No, that's not true. It's Pardo's dream, and part of Pardo's dream and his goals is to have a child by a Fremen woman that he can then use to move this forward, if you like, Leet Kynes had been Chani's father. Without him, there would have been no dream, no Chani, no royal twins. The workings of this fragile chain dismayed Stilgar. So, as we pointed out, Stilgar's looking at his own role in all of this. And I suppose just even within, we look to the Kynes family, it made me kind of wonder a little bit about the various different groups that make up the twins' bloodline, if you like. So Leet Kynes is a citizen of the Imperium. His surname is Kynes. I think he's named after the Economist, isn't he? Sorry, not remembering his first names. Isn't it? John Maynard Keynes, I believe. Let me just quickly check that's him. I'm not big into economists. Yes, that's him. So I think Keynes very much is named after John Maynard Keynes, first Baron Keynes, 1883 to 1946, English economist and philosopher whose ideas fundamentally changed the theory and practice of macroeconomics and the economic policies. So we have that family within the bloodline, because of course that we're not too sure who Chani's mother is, but she's whoever she is, she's related to Stilgar, I believe. So we've got the Keynes family within the genes. We've got that Fremen family within the genes. We've got the Harkonnen family within the genes, which is inbred and inbred again. We've got the Atreides family within the genes. And we possibly also have the Corrinos, and the question about Mohiam possibly being Paul Atreides' grandmother. Her surname is Mohiam, and again, that must refer to another family, if you like, even though she's a Bene Gesserit. I think it's too simple to look at our protagonists throughout the Dune series as just being Harkonnens and Atreides, if you see what I mean. There are other factors within their blood, and of course we have the wild Fremen blood as well through Chani, if you like, within Leto and Ghanima. No Chani, no royal twins. The working of this fragile chain dismayed Stilgar. I actually started off trying to do a wee bit of a family tree, actually, going back a wee bit. Let me just see. Is that it? I didn't get too far, though, because I think there was too much doubt about it. Let me lift these down. Ooh la la. Oops. I was scribbling on the bed here, but no, it's not there. Not worry about it, folks. There's a wee nosy over here. All the stuff we've got here. Goodness great. My this place is mad today. I've got so many Dune books and all sorts of bits and pieces around, And there's Nathan Granville saying, "Hi, me in the future, laughing out loud. I'm on chapter 28 of Dune in your series. I'll catch up eventually. Haha. Thanks for this book club, Doc. It's great. You're very welcome, Nathan. Have to leave. No spoilers. Thanks again, Doc. All the best, Nathan. Thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you're enjoying the Dune book club. You're a good few chapters to go through. It's a lot of stuff, though, isn't it? I have to say. We've got a core, I think. We've got a hardcore of people, about 90 people, who watch all of them. And I think people are catching up and starting to find it. But it is a pretty dense book club, I think. But I'm hoping it's a bit fun and entertaining as well as being a bit pedantic. But I think, as I point out, my goal is really to, for myself as well as for you guys, on Final Time, is to grok this book, grok these books, and really just try to get a good grip on them once and for all. I think, to grok them in fullness is our goal here. So thank you very much for joining us, Nathan. Good of you to say hello, and enjoy. Take it easy. So we've got Stilgar's thoughts here, and I think this is interesting. It's just, how do all of these events combine to make this happen? How have we met in this place? How have we combined? For what purpose? Is my duty to end it all, to shatter that great combination? Duty. Something that can be twisted, by the way. Stilgar admitted, funny enough, I talked about duty myself not too long back when doing my father's eulogy, but that was the motivation. It was my duty to do so. So I kind of can relate to some things in relation to duty. But we're going to talk about maybe the perversion of virtues in a wee bit. Stilgar admitted the terrible urging within him now. He could make that choice, denying love and family to do what a naive must do on occasion, make a deadly decision for the good of the tribe. But by one view, such a murder represented ultimate betrayal and atrocity. To kill mere children. Yeah, yet they were not children. Yet they were not mere children. So let's just have a wee look at that. The terrible urging within him now that he sees as a projection from something else. Where is this coming from? I could do this. I could just end this all. Denying love, for he loves them, and that they're family. These are the two things that he would deny to do this terrible thing. But it's the sort of thing that a Nabe occasionally must do. It's a deadly decision for the good of the tribe. By one view, such a murder represented ultimate betrayal and atrocity. And of course, the term is murder there. To kill mere children with an exclamation mark. I think it's clear that it's not something that settles well with Stilgar at all. And here's the contradiction to his thinking, though. Yet they were not mere children. They had eaten melange, had shared in the siege orgy, had probed the desert for sand trout, and played the other games of Fremen children. And they sat in the royal council. Children of such tender years, yet wise enough to sit in the council. They might be children in the flesh, but they were ancient in experience, born with a totality of genetic memory, a terrifying awareness which set their Aunt Alia and themselves apart from all other living humans. So yes, these are 9-year-old children, again like Alia, fully aware from birth, and we're told not to look at them as children. They're children in the flesh only, but they're not mere children. So they've eaten melange, they've taken drugs, shared in the siege orgy, and I'm hoping that that's not physically, but that's the shared Tao, if you like, had probed. I'm sure it's not physically at all, actually. It is the shared consciousness that you get within the siege orgy. Had probed the desert for sand trout and played the other games of Fremen children. So all of these things, I suppose, are normal for Fremen children, and they'd sat in the royal council. Children of such tender years, yet wise enough to sit in the council. They might be children in flesh, but they were ancient in experience, born with a totality of genetic memory, terrifying awareness which set their Aunt Alia. We're bringing Alia into this now as well. And again, there's terrifying as well. And so it set their Aunt Alia and themselves apart from all other living humans. Sorry, just wanted to highlight something here. All right. There we go. Red's danger. Okay. And as I said, this chapter works in many ways as a bit of a recap. We get terminology reintroduced, characters, kind of a bit of a recap as well. And I think it's a much better way to do it than the basically just the kind of like a scrolling recap, if you like, that was in Dune Messiah, my copy, which just basically kind of told us everything that happened. In Dune, I think this is much more, interestingly enough, as Stilgar is a much more subtle creature here. Frank's writing it kind of, this is a recap in many ways, is also much more subtle, I think. It's a better way of doing it, I think, in this book. So here we go. Many times and many nights had Stilgar found his mind circling this difference, shared by the twins and their aunt. Many times he had awakened from sleep by these torments, coming here to the twins' bedchambers with his dreams unfinished. Now his doubts came to focus. Failure to make a decision was in itself a decision. He knew this. So he's made a decision, is what I put next to that. These twins and their aunt had awakened in the womb, knowing all of the memories passed on to them by their ancestors. Spice addiction had done this. Spice addiction of the mothers, the Lady Jessica and Chani. The Lady Jessica had borne a son, Muad'Dib, but before her addiction. Alia had come after the addiction. There's the difference in the two. That was clear in retrospect. Clear looking back at it, but the countless generations of selective breeding directed by the Bene Gesserit had achieved Muad'Dib, but nowhere in the Sisterhood's plans had they allowed for melange. Oh, they knew about the possibility, but they feared it and called it abomination. Now, that's another weird one for me. Put that out, sorry. So to suggest that the Bene Gesserit hadn't factored this in, of course, we get the heavy criticism of them at the very back of Dune in the appendices. that they messed up badly in the Arrakis affair, as they put it, as it's put. Let me just see if I can find this. So I always point out it's my favorite thing to read from Dune is the very last paragraph. In the face of these facts, one has led to the inescapable conclusion that the inefficient Bene Gesserit behavior was a product of a plan of which they were completely unaware, which I still call the biggest mystery in the Dune series. But if we look at that, there certainly is an awareness by the Bene Gesserit of melange. In that sense, they knew about the possibility. So they, in terms of making plans, so if they know about something can go wrong, they have no redundancy for this. If you see what I mean, they have no plan. That's kind of stupid. But it says if they knew about the possibility, but they feared it and called it abomination, then what I find interesting about that is was it fear that governed the Bene Gesserit in this, that prevented them from considering melange being handed over, having their Kwisatz Haderach immerse themselves in melange, for example. They knew about the possibility. That's kind of in that they knew kind of way, isn't it? But they feared it. And I think that's very interesting because we don't think of the Bene Gesserit as being fearful, or that the litany against fear will kick in, and they'll control their fear. So the question is, why weren't they able to do it? And it's because of this fear that they've come up with the term abomination. And this is going to be quite a big plot point within this, I think. That was the most dismaying fact. So abomination comes from the Latin word abominare, which is kind of a hybrid of two words. So ab means to move away from, and of course the ominare is where we get the word omen from, which is an omen. So an abomination is a thing that causes disgust or loathing or a feeling of hatred in people. Which is kind of interesting because as much as we talk about fear as the mind killer, I actually think fundamentally that Frank Herbert was quite wrong about that. Fear is a vital point of is a very useful tool, a survival tool. What's a much bigger mind killer in terms of what it does to your brain is anger and hatred. These emotions, strong emotions, tend to shut down a lot of the parts of your brain that are actually make you think properly. But I think that's interesting that they are fearful of this. That was the most dismaying fact. There's that word dismay again. They must possess reasons for such a judgment. And if they said that Alia was an abomination, then that must apply equally to the twins. This is Stilgar's reasoning here, and he's correct. Because Chani too had been addicted. Her body saturated with spice, and her genes had somehow complemented those of Muad'Dib. Stilgar's thoughts moved in ferment. There could be no doubt these twins went beyond their father. But in which direction? And these are, as I've written next to this, these are questions for us. Little thing there, just in relation to the Bene Gesserit, etc. I've just made a video here for all things Dune, feminism, etc. Women's agency, all of this stuff. Check out Cara Kennedy's work. We'll mention a couple of Dune scholars here tonight. Cara's got 3 books out now on Dune, and has her own website. So Cara Kennedy, Kara Kennedy, has been on the show. We've had a chat with her a couple of times, and a bit of a friend of the show, I like to think. A lot of all the Dune scholars, people that I actually ever reached out to, I think we've said this before, Cara's the only person that ever actually bothered to get in touch and have a natter with us, and we'll have to see if we can get her on the show again sometime for a bit of a Dune chat or something. Now, let's see. So the logic with the dismaying fact again, we've had this emotion from Stilgar before, is that if Ali is an abomination, they have to be too. Simply put, the processes that create Ali are the same processes that create Leto and Ghanima. And of course, we have Ali as, we've seen the beginning of Ali's madness within Dune Messiah. Yeah, I have no idea how Denis Villeneuve's going to handle this stuff, but I just think it's going to go further and further away from the story. And the characters are going to become almost, I think the characters would have to be almost unrecognizable at this point, Goodness, right. So here we go. The boy spoke. This is just Leto. The boy spoke of ability to be his father and had proved it. Even as an infant, Leto had revealed memories which only Muad'Dib should have known. Were there other ancestors waiting in that vast spectrum of memories, ancestors whose beliefs and habits created unspeakable dangers for living humans? That's a good question. We can answer it later on. I suppose some of us do know that, of course, that's the case. Abominations, the holy witches of the Bene Gesserit said, yet the sisterhood coveted the genophase of these children. The witches wanted sperm and ovum without the disturbing flesh that carried them. Was that why the Lady Jessica returned at this time? She had broken with the sisterhood to support her ducal mate, that's Leto the First, but rumours said she had returned to the Bene Gesserit ways. Now, very quickly, genophase. There's no such word. It does not exist, as far as I know. I think it's one of Frank's attempts to create a science fiction neologism. And I'm not too sure it really makes any sense. So geno, let's just run the word. Geno from the Greek genos means race or kind, as in type, or family, or birth. There's also genea, which is to produce. We also have the Latin gens, which means tribe or clan. And then phase is a word that really means to show, if you like. Comes from the Greek word phenean, which moves down into phasic, which into Latin, which is phases, to the modern word phase, which means an appearance or to show, if you like. I'm not too sure what he's trying to achieve with this word. I think it's an attempt to make a neologism. I don't think it worked in this case. Simply put, they want, the way I think Frank's working it is that they want the sperm. Simply put, they want the sperm and eggs, if you like, sperm and ovum of the children. Now, that's going to be, I suppose, because these kids are 9 years old, which means they haven't hit puberty yet, as far as I know. But they'll wait, won't they? Dear, oh dear. So it's a genophase is a non-word to me, but I thought I would split it up for you into the two Greek words that have been put together to create this word. To show your race, to show your kind, to show your family, to show your clan, to produce the clan, etc., etc. But what he's wanting, I suppose, is the human building blocks of life, sperm and ovum, if you like. I should have said not quite the building blocks of life, but you get me. The main aspects of our reproduction. But just to let you know, there's no such word as genophase. And for a minute, I thought it was well, there we go. So it's just a wee term I think that Frank has created for the story. Stilgar's thoughts here is, I could end all of those dreams. Stilgar thought how simple it would be. And yet he wondered at himself that he could contemplate such a reality. Where Muad'Dib's... Oh, hang on. Sorry, looks like I made a wee mistake here. Where's my book? Let me just check. Oh, no, hang on. Where Muad'Dib... Hang on. Oh, what have I done? Right, let's see. Number 24. I've left out a word. There we go. It's not just Frank it does it, is it? Let's have a look. And yet again he wondered Adams. There we go. I've left out the word again. Apologies, folks. And yet again he wondered at himself that he could contemplate such a reality. Oh no, here, hang on. Where Muad'Dib? That's not the. I made a mistake. I made another one. Hang on, let me just see. Sorry, I must have got distracted when I was writing this. Yet again, he wondered at himself that he could contemplate such a reality. Were Muad'Dib's twins responsible? There we go. That's were Muad'Dib's. I've left out a word. Twins. There we go. Responsible for the reality which obliterated the dreams of others. That's it. Apologies, folks. Must have got distracted there. I've written note 24 and then gone straight to note 28 for some reason. Yeah, that's okay. I've made a couple of mistakes there. Apologies. Were Muad'Dib's twins responsible for the reality which obliterated the dreams of others? And he answers this question: no, they're not responsible. None of us are really responsible for the world that the generations before us create. We come into the world regardless of who we are. It's not our fault. So again, this is Stilgar. As much as we're getting little glimpses of what's going on, we're getting a hint that things are moving forward. Jessica's returning to the planet, etc., etc. We get him processing this kind of moral conundrum within his mind, and he gives us an answer: no, it's not their fault. They're not responsible. They're merely the lens. And again, we have this projection, the lens, the light, all of this that's been running through this chapter. I think it's a really very well done this to carry this through the chapter in different ways. And it really works very well. It's Frank, as much as we point out the odd wee thing, Frank's writing very well in this chapter, I think. They were merely the lens through which light poured to reveal new shapes in the universe. In torment, his mind reverted to primary Fremen beliefs, and he thought, God's command comes, so seek not to hasten it. God's it is to show the way, and some to swerve from it. Now, this is the first of a couple of quotations from the Quran. Now, I'm no Islamic scholar, and I'm no Quranic scholar at all, so hopefully you'll all forgive me with this kind of stuff. I've done a wee bit of looking. Now, this is from the Quran, Surah An-Nahl, which is the B, 16 ayats 1 and 9. And I've got something for you. Bear with me a wee second. Let me see. Hopefully, I've got to open this up in a new tab. Right, there we go. Excellent. Now, just to briefly, I think I mentioned them all earlier, but for looking at Islam within Dune, there's from way back for me, it was Caladan Bahildon's work. I thought was very good. But Haris A. Durrani's work, what I've heard him recently described as the greatest post-colonial Dune scholar, I think, which I thought was very funny, and I think he's taken it. But here we have a link for you on relation to the, this is one of Harris's pieces of work. I'm just going to pop this in here and paste. There we go. There we are. That should take you to reading Children of Dune, Entry 1, Quranic Passages, Race and Fremen Customs, Tradition and Change. And it's an article that Harris has written in relation to the opening passages from the Quran within the first chapter of Children of Dune. So I'll just quote you, by the way, from Harris's work here. In chapter 1, Herbert verbatim quotes not once but twice from A.J. Arbery's 1955 translation of the Quran. This is wild. So it's Surah An-Nahl, ayat 1 and 9. Surah means chapter. I've been educating myself a wee bit in this today. And ayat is the word for verses. So for us, I suppose, not too familiar with the Quran, this would be, oh no, I actually got, hang on, another reference. So this would be, bear with me a wee second. So the B, I think, is the name of the Surah An-Nahl, is the B, is the name of the chapter, but it's chapter 16, verses 1 and 9 within the Quran. So God's command comes. seek not to hasten it. And then the other part of that is God's, it is to show the way, and some do swerve from it. So these are, according to Harris, who's looked at this, literal copies from that translation. A.J. Arbery's. You can find all of this on this article. And by the way, have a wee look at what you get is some of her on this. So have a good wee nosy at that. We've got another quote coming up from the Quran. So his mind reverted to primary beliefs, and he thought, so all of these bad thoughts that, if you like, that Stilgar is having, that he's become a subtle creature, that we're told this, that there's a core within, and this core, I believe, are his primary Fremen beliefs. God's command comes, so seek not to hasten it. In other words, you'll figure, don't do this yourself. You'll know what to do. It'll be God's way. This kind of thing. God's it is to show the way, and some do swerve from it. So this is what's going to stay his hand, I think, is his religious beliefs. And we're told it was the religion of Muad'Dib which upset Stilgar most. Oh, sorry, I was reading these. I was saying about the Islamic scholars. I found another chap there. It's called Ali Karu Ravari, I believe. Karju Ravari. Apologies. Let me see. Did I bookmark his stuff? Let me check very quickly. I'm hoping I did. Bear with me a second. Got something else here. Right. That's not loading up at all. There we go. Oh, here we go. Here's another link for you folks. This is Ali Karju Ravari. Frank Herbert's Dune novels were heavily influenced by Middle Eastern Islamic culture, says scholar. Let me just get a bit of blurb there. There we go. Ali Karju Ravari is assistant professor of Islamic studies at Bucknell University in Lewisburg, PA. I'm not sure what that means. I take it that's an American state. I'm trying to think which one. He says the references to Middle Eastern Islamic cultures in Frank Herbert's Dune are intentional and deliberate. There we go. Let me just copy this. So here's another article on Islam within Dune, etc. There we go. That didn't go. Try. Oh, wow. Right. The crap. Okay. The length of that. Let me see. Hang on a second. The length of that address is so. Let me see. cbc.ra.radio is where the site is from. Day 6, it says, introducing the metaverse crisis in Afghanistan, stuff the British stole Islamic influence, Dune and more. It's a ridiculously long. Let me just see if I can. Yeah, so I'm unfortunate it's not letting me paste the link, folks. It's too big. I'll give you the title of the, hopefully that's the title of the article there. Frank Herbert's novels were influenced by. Oh, let me see. Oh, I missed out the letter F there. Sorry, it's Frank's. Let me paste that in again. If you do a search for that, you should find it. There we go. Voila. Sorry, I can't give you the link there. It's too long for YouTube, apparently. Cynthia saying I have to go. Thanks, Doc. Great to get underway with. See you next week. All the best, Cynthia. Thank you so much, as always. I really could do with a set of your copies of the books. But thank you very much. I'll have to back up a wee bit and read some other comments here. My text says, oops. And yet again, he wondered at himself that he could contemplate such a choice. Where Muad'Dib. Right, hang on. Thank you, Cynthia. And all the very best. Catch you soon. Let me just see. Yet again, he wondered himself that he would contemplate such a choice. Let me just find that. Because I do like to get the text absolutely correct within these notebooks, because I write out the entire book, by the way, in these books. It takes a bit of time. Let me just see. himself. Right, let me find that. Bear with me a wee second, folks, just as I try and find this passage here. And yet he, yeah, there we go. And yet he wandered, and yet he, again, right, and yet again he wondered at himself that he could contemplate such a, where'd you go? A choice. Right, that's a completely different word. Bear with me. That's note number 25. Okay. Yeah, no, I've got reality. I'm wondering, again, just folks with different copies of the books, this stuff's kind of interesting to me. Right. And yet, right, hang on. Let's get this. Let me see. And yet again, right, he wondered at himself that he could contemplate such a reality, and Cynthia's copy has choice. Right. Let me write that in and take it up here. And I'm just going to write Berkeley edition. Says choice, not reality. Right. Here's the interesting thing. I'm going to go with saying that Cynthia's copy is probably correct. Let me have a look. Were Muad'Dib's twins responsible for the reality? And yet again, he wondered himself that he could contemplate such a reality, such a choice. I could end all those dreams. How simple it would be. It's a choice that he's making, isn't it? And we've discussed the fact that to make a decision, to not make a decision is a decision itself. Both make sense here, but I would actually go with the preference of choice. It makes better sense, you know. It's a weird thing, isn't it, that we're all reading the same book, but we're not. It's kind of appalling. I've expressed my kind of disgust for this on many occasions, actually. There have been some howlers within the Dune series in relation to misprints, mistakes. We talked about, particularly in this book here, Peter de Vries is called Peter de Vrede. If you're a first-time reader of Dune, you've got the wrong character name. That's an appalling mistake, and it's mostly throughout that book. But there we go. Thank you. Cynthia's off, but thanks as always, Cynthia. And again, this has become a bit of a thing. Cynthia's got the Berkeley editions, the Berkeley Medallion editions. I've got loads of different editions, but I do not have those. It seems that if you're really wanting to get a really good copy of Dune, those Berkeley editions are the ones. And again, it looks like they've been edited. And that's a real problem, that we can't say that for the rest of these books, you know. It's a really interesting question, and as I said, it's one of those things that if we look at somebody like Christopher Tolkien, managing his father's estate and the works of, you know, J.R.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings, the similar, all of this stuff, what utter care and hard work that the man put into the, you know, maintaining his father's legacy, making sure that those books are bang on. It seems that the Herbert estate has got no interest whatsoever in fixing these books, and are just happy to sell them out to anybody who wants to publish them. But even as a publisher, if I worked for Hodder or any of these companies at the minute, I'd be pretty appalled, and I would probably put an editor onto these to fix them before the next print, if you like. But again, why bother if you see? I mean, people, who's going to know? You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. And what's even worse to me was that this is the 50th anniversary edition, riddled with mistakes, absolutely riddled with it, you know. Quite bizarre. But there we go. I would go with Stilgar's choice there. I think, as is in the Berkeley edition, it makes more sense, though reality is not so far from the. Oh, away you go, wee fly. the word reality there doesn't really, it does make sense enough, I think, if you know what I mean. But it's used immediately after that. In the next line, what do we say? Almost 25. Were Muad'Dib's twins responsible for the reality which obliterated the dreams of others? No. But allowed himself that he could contemplate such a. I could. I think choice is the right word there, folks. You know, I'll leave it at that. But on we go. But it's just this keeps happening to us. Now, the religion of Muad'Dib. Here we go. It was the religion of Muad'Dib which upset Stilgar the most. So we've got nothing but negative emotions with Stilgar here, haven't we? He's upset. He's feeling guilty. He's almost, he's dismayed. He's a bit low. But this is what upsets him the most. Why did they make a god of Muad'Dib? Why deify a man known to be flesh? Muad'Dib's golden elixir of life had created a monster which sat astride human affairs. Government and religion united and breaking a law. Government and religion united and breaking a law became a sin. A smell of blasphemy arose like smoke around any questioning of government edicts. The guilt of rebellion invoked hellfire and self-righteous judgments. Now, I'll just finish the next. Go with the next. Yet it was man who created these government edicts. So I keep putting that on top of my copy of the book. Now, very, very quickly, this harkens just to say that the equation of breaking the law with sin, if you like, reminds me a lot of Erewhon, where to commit a crime, if you commit a crime in Erewhon, you're seen as being sick and are treated accordingly. However, if you're sick, that's seen as a crime. This kind of thing. But yes, indeed, government and religion united, making the breaking of the law a sin. Smell of blasphemy arose like smoke around any questioning the government edicts. The guilt of rebellion invoked hellfire and self-righteous judgments. Very, very true. And particularly with Christianity over the years, hellfire and self-righteous judgments, etc. This kind of thing. Yet it was men who created these government edicts. Yes, human beings write laws, divine or otherwise. There's no God's hand in any law ever, I think, but that's my own personal opinion. Interestingly enough, we've heard a lot of Christians going on about blasphemy recently with the Olympics. Not that we're seeing any of it over here, but just in relation to the opening ceremony. I suppose with the recreation of the Last Supper painting, Last Supper paintings being recreated by so many people with so many different, I suppose, characters, etc. Taken, but the last one I remember being was the Battlestar Galactica. People did it. But we're hearing the word blasphemy a lot. Blasphemy is a crime in this country, by the way. I'm in Northern Ireland, for those of you who don't know. And I could have easily have been arrested for all sorts of things that I've said on this channel. But it's a law that hasn't been revoked, but nobody gets arrested for blasphemy here anymore. I would almost dare them to go ahead. To be honest with you, but that's not because I'm being blasphemous. It's just that we're particularly with this book, we're looking at all sorts of things with religion and stuff. That doesn't go with the flow here. That's blasphemy. But Northern Ireland's a country that still has blasphemy laws. Shows you how backward we are. But yes, indeed, this is what bothers him. The equation of rebellion, crime with sin, this kind of thing. Yet this is man who creates these edicts. This is the work of men. Bojack's got the first edition I have. That says choice. Yeah, I think that's the right word. Bojack, thank you very much. So I'll be honest with you, Cynthia is our go-to person for those editions. And it kind of pleases me that I trip on these things, but that we've got people who've got different versions of the book. But it sometimes makes working at this that we're not all on the same page. We're not reading the same words. It's a bit tricky. But yeah, I think choice is the correct word there. I think it's what was it? The reality. Herbert's not the sort to dump a couple of words like that in a row. If you see what I mean, if you're doing a bit of writing, you tend not to want to use the same words over and over again. You'll try and use a synonym, that kind of thing. But the reality doesn't make sense. It's a choice, and I think because of the fact that he's talked about this making decisions in the previously, I think that's bang on. We'll go with choice. Very much, Bojack. Oh goodness gracious! There's always these short chapters seem to take more than work. The long chapters we tend to get through quicker. I've never quite understood that. But yeah, I've got Berkeley edition. Bojack, you've got a first edition. Can I ask who's the publisher, please? If you could let me know, that would be good to know. You see, that's the thing that starts to get to me. You've got a first edition. That's correct. So how do these mistakes happen? Who's changed the word? You know, that's kind of where I'm going. If we've got correct editions of these books and then we're getting ones that are published later on, who's mucked with this? Or is it just accidents or misprints or something like that? Or I don't know, but it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Chaya saying, didn't both Jessica and the ghost of Pardo when Leah dies warn of the dangers of religion and government law writing in the same car? Yeah, it's one of Frank's big things, I think. It's definitely in there. Excuse me. Berkeley as well. Thank you, Bojack. No need to add a different publisher in there. Berkeley edition, first edition, choice. Not reality. You get where I'm going. Where's the... in terms of there must be a master manuscript. Does that make sense for publishing, for printing? How does the book get changed? Unless somebody's actually actively editing these for some reason. And that these mistakes have since then carried on down through further generations, but they're not in the first edition. There's no sense to it at all to me. I don't get it. Especially when we know that Brian Herbert's hand is not editing, like Christopher Tolkien's, it's not trying to fix these books. It's just trying to sell more and more and more Dune stories, which continue to dilute and dilute and dilute Frank Herbert's universe. There's a bit of revenge for you, I think. Who knows? Yeah, choice. Definitely going with choice. Thank you very much, Berkeley. Yeah. If you want it looks like if you want a copy of the Dune series without a whole pile of mistakes in it, the Berkeley editions are the ones to go for. And so I've got several different ones here. In fact, I've got more copies of Children of Dune over here. It's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous how many copies of I've actually got 3 of the green ones there. Actually, just because of work and scribbling, I've got 3 of these. Same cover, But yeah, it's a thing that I won't say it bothers me too much, but it bugs me about. Oh dear. Yeah, religion and government. It's one of Frank's big writings. And we'll maybe see if we can dig some stuff out from Maker of Dune and the Frank Herbert book by Timothy O'Reilly next time, just to talk about it. But it's definitely something we've mentioned before. I live in a country where government and religion go hand in hand. And the whole a lot of that's been around here for a long time, I suppose. But it's as I said, not taken too seriously anymore. It's taken the reals. We have a lot of the kind of fire and brimstone type preachers. Everyone's going to hell. This kind of thing. Particularly within the unionist political parties, they really, it's about that kind of Protestant faith and all of this kind of stuff as well. But like when I was a kid, you couldn't go to the swimming pool on a Sunday because it was shut, because the councils would close them because they wanted you to enforce their Sabbath on you, basically. But now, when you've only got 2 days a week to sort of go out and enjoy yourself and try and do things like that. But yeah, used to be if I was a kid, I would have went swimming. Not that I've been swimming since I was a kid, but you know, it was things like that. You just, people not happy about it. But yeah, religious law. I, I suppose I've got my own opinions on this. If we go back into the ancient world, the law is kind of religious in its sense, if you like. But all religions have laws, as far as I know. Hmm. Yeah, we must have a wee nosy into that sometime. In particular, what am I thinking on here? Bear with me a wee second. Trying to remember how to spell something. I'll just type it. What's the one I'm thinking on, for example? We have a number of. Oh, for goodness sake. Hang on. No, that's. Someone's grabbed that stub with just simply their book. Bear with me a wee second. There's an interesting thing. Well, the girls are outside. Stand by for barking. Hello, Holly. Yeah, I'll have a wee nosy into that maybe and see what I can find, and maybe for next time just to throw in there, there you go. The Bojack saying I have one of those new Ace. Is that Ace editions? And it says choice also. Yeah, yeah. So somebody, there must be more than one manuscript. If you see what I mean, there must be more than one master copy. But yeah, Ace as well. Ace editions also have choice as well. Must see if I can check out one of them as well. Thanks very much for that, Bojack. Right, where were we? Stilgar shook his head sadly, not seeing the attendants who had moved into the royal antechamber for their morning duties. He fingered the crisp knife at his waist, thinking of the past it symbolized, thinking that more than once he had sympathized with rebels whose abortive uprisings had been crushed by his own orders. Sympathy. Confusion washed through his mind, and he wished he knew how to obliterate it, returning to the simplicities represented by the knife. And we know about that, the way of the knife, if you like, the nature of the knife, if isn't it to cut the thing off to say it's done, this kind of thing. In particular, the knife in Fremen culture, I think, is quite an interesting thing. But the universe would not turn backward. And this is a great trick. You should never go back in life, if you like. Go sideways or go forwards, but try not to go back. Nostalgia can sometimes be quite a bad thing, if you like. Doesn't mean that you can't go back and revisit things, but it's not quite what we're meaning, if you like. But don't take yourself back upon your path in life. Try and move forward if you can. But the universe would not turn backward. I have a quote about that, isn't it? It's Milton, I think, isn't it? Time will run back and time will run back and bring forth an age of gold or something like that, I believe. His knife, the universe would not turn backward. It was a great engine projected upon the grey void of non-existence. His knife, if it brought the deaths of the twins, would only reverberate against that void, weaving new complexities to echo through human history, creating new surges of chaos, inviting humankind to attempt other forms of order and disorder. So the universe, and I suppose the fundamental thing we always have to remember about the Dune series, is it the key word about it is, I suppose, is eternity. We have it in the epigraph at the beginning. particularly in relation to the powers of prescience and seeing what's coming, that any human being can only ever be a blip against the totality of eternity and time, this kind of thing. We've got it in some of Frank Herbert's audio tapes, etc., which we're going to have to make some notes on soon. Stilgar's side. That's the second time he's sighed, by the way. Again, we've got a few things that are repeated within this chapter. Again, it's an author reinforcing this kind of stuff. Growing aware of the movements around him. Yes, these attendants represented a kind of order which was bound around Muad'Dib's twins. They moved from one moment to the next, meeting whatever necessities occurred there. Best to emulate them, Stilgar told himself. Best meet what comes when it comes. Yeah. That's a deal with it when it happens, basically, this kind of thing. Stop worrying about it. Because how does Shakespeare put it? When troubles come in single spies, when troubles come, they come not in single spies, but in battalions. And that's from Hamlet, I think, isn't it? So just worry about it when it happens, this kind of thing, I think. It's interesting that the way it's put there, we have this chaos and order thing here, which is quite important to the Dune series, especially if you see the Dune series as a response to the Foundation trilogy. Very quickly, I'll just get this book off the shelf for you if you want to read about this. We do this every now and then. We'll I suppose bring out books just to remind you about them, that there's some very specific topics within it. But this is the one I'm talking about. Just good books. That's a good book. One Herbert is Frank Tuponce's book. I think it's a really good book, Frank Herbert. It's part of a series, by the way, isn't it? Twain's authors series. Let me see. Books they cover Ray Bradbury, Philip K. Dick, Robert Heinlein, Aldous Huxley, Stephen King, The First Decade, Ursula K. Le Guin, C.S. Lewis, George Orwell, Edgar Allan Poe, Reginald Scott, and Renaissance writing on witchcraft, and J.R.R. Tolkien. That sounds like a good wee series. Twain's authors series. They're quite an old book, by the way. And again, that's really we should actually have got a whole chapter here on Children of Dune. I'll leave this out. 47, just to have a wee nosy, actually run through. We presented you with some stuff on Children of Dune from these two books there today, but we'll have a wee look at William Tuponce. So it's William Tuponce. I do that a lot. It's William Tuponce. Apologies. I think William Tuponce has passed away a wee while back. But it's a rather good book, so must have a wee look at it. But it pretty much covers Frank. Let me see. Twain's United States Authors Series. Warren French is the editor, published by University College of Swansea, Wales. There you go. That's good. Frank Herbert by William F. Tuponce, Indiana University, Indianapolis. This Twain Publishers, a division of G.K. Hall and Company, Boston. So this book is broke up into chapter 1 is life and intellectual background, and then we have chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cover Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune. Chapter 6 covers heretics and chapter house, and then chapter 7 is a critical summary. So that's Frank Herbert by William F. Tuponce. In terms of those sort of more biographical books, if you like, that's your two, I think. And of course, you can add Brian Herbert's Dreamer of Dune, isn't it? I think, if I can remember correctly. My old brain's going to shit these days. Apologies. Let's see. I've lifted it actually down because I've probably done some work, but there it is. It's right behind me. Yeah, it's Dreamer of Dune as well. It's my hardback copy. I've got a paperback as well. So no, the book I'm actually talking about very quickly is this one. It's Chaos Theory, Asimov's Foundation Robots, and Herbert's Dune, the fractal aesthetic of epic science fiction by Donald E. Palumbo. If you can get a copy of this, I highly recommend it. It's got all sorts of things about the fractal nature, the recurring patterns within Dune in particular. You can probably see I've highlighted the hell out of this one a long time ago. It's a good read. It's very informative. It's got some great ideas in it, the plots within plots. And it also looks at the The self-similarity of the Dune series architecture, I think, is particularly good. Trilogies within a trilogy within a trilogy, if you like. So this is the way he likes to think of the structure of the Dune series. Beginning here with the first Dune novel as a trilogy within itself, if you see what I mean, and then a part of the overall trilogy. It's a very interesting thing. I don't know if you can just catch a look at that. There we've got the Dune Messiah, Children of Dune. And then the Atreides books covering about 35 years, God Emperor of Dune, the Bene Gesserit books, and then the entire Dune series covers about 5,000 years. I personally think that you can do it as overlapping, kind of like a, oh goodness, and kind of like systems development, we have kind of evolutionary type spiral kind of thing. There, as much as you can consider the Dune series too, what I actually think is that it is that, but within that are three duologies, if you see what I mean. Books 1 and 2 really are about Paul. We're into the third book now. Leto is where we're going. Leto books 3 and 4, God Emperor, and then the Bene Gesserit for 5 and 6. But I also look at God Emperor as it should have been the middle book, if you like. Oh goodness, that's tricky. With two trilogies on either side, it's meant to be the bridging book, I think, as well. So there's different ways that you can look at the Dune series: trilogies, duologies, and again, within that, a trilogy within trilogies. But in particular, this is the whole chaos order response. Society is going from order to chaos, or from chaos to order, and it's worth having a look at Asimov's Foundation, the initial Foundation trilogy. In terms of that, and if you want to consider Dune as a response to that, it's one way that many people look at it. And Herbert's attitude to science and technology, in particular, would, I would say, almost be diametrically opposed to someone like Asimov's here. We've got that with this projector right at the start. Just to quickly jump back. How Stilgar feels about this thing. Let me just see. In terms of it, I mean, it seems to be it's an imperial device, as I said. And if you look at David Lynch's Dune, you'll see one of these projectors being used a couple of times, I think. But he says that the projector irritated him even while he depended on it. Dependency on technology. The thing was a subtle instrument of the Imperium, a device to detect the presence of large living bodies. But it irritated him. Dependency, this kind of thing. Although, of course, one of the paradoxical things, I suppose, about the Fremen is that they're very dependent on their own technologies to survive on Dune. And that's I kind of, it's one of those things. I have a kind of love-hate relationship with technology. I would take the Blade Runner approach. It's either a benefit or a hazard, and if it's a hazard, getting rid of it, this kind of thing. But particularly when teaching maths to my students, and I'm not mean about it, but within for example, the GCSE, they have to do maths papers that you need a calculator for, and one that you don't need a calculator for. And I teach my kids to do the calculator papers without the calculator. My reasoning for it is, now there's a couple of things that they do need it for, obviously, is things like trigonometry and stuff. But because it's a crutch, is the way I explain it to him. And if you don't have the machine, what can you do this? And it's as simple as that. As much as we'll get them to work with the calculator and stuff like that. The weird thing about that, within, I suppose, one of the things that I explain to my kids is it's possible to do a maths paper in this country, get every question wrong, read this, and score more than somebody who got every question right. Isn't that bonkers? But it's all about showing process, really. So the idea is, if you've got 5 marks for a maths question, if you did the 4 stages, process of getting there and then messed up the answer, you got 4 marks out of 5. If you didn't bother showing your process and just wrote down the answer and it was correct, you get 1 mark out of 5. That's the way maths works in this country. But the idea of dependency on technology, etc. It's Herbert has a bit of a problem with it, whereas Asimov is a very much technology can solve everything, and it's called the Presbyterian fixation, isn't it? That's what Herbert calls it. But the idea that Asimov would say, for example, well, we can solve any problem just with more tech, basically. Which is interesting. Now, let's see, where do we get to? Let me just check very quickly here. Sorry, folks. Oh, yes, he was fingered the crysknife, the great engine projected upon the grey void of non-existence. His knife, if it brought the deaths of the twins, would only reverberate against the void, weaving new complexities to echo through human history, creating new surges of chaos, inviting humankind to attempt other forms of order and disorder. The whole chaos and order thing, I think, is very interesting. And I suppose the point, for any of us who've maybe read Michael Moorcock's multiverse books, the Eternal Champion series, etc., the idea is really that if you can't maintain a balance between chaos and order, that if you tend to go to one more than the other, that if you have a society that creates too much order, what you will get is chaos. If you create a society that has too much chaos, ultimately what it will bring is too much, a shift to order. And the best way to kind of, for any society to move forward, if you like, even humanity, is to find a balance, if you like. I tend to be a lot more chaotic than I am ordered, I suppose, if you like. I'm a bit of a creature of chaos, to be honest with you. I kind of revel in it. But I don't mind order either, if you see what I mean. So Stilgar's side, as I was saying, that's the second time he's sighed like this. Same language. Growing aware of the movements around him. Yes, these attendants represented a kind of order which was bound around Muad'Dib's twins. They moved from one moment to the next, meeting whatever necessities occurred there. Best to emulate them, Stilgar told himself. Best meet what comes when it comes. So meet the challenge. So he's making a decision here. Meet the challenge when it comes. Deal with it when it happens. I am an attendant yet, he told himself, and my master is God the merciful, the compassionate. And he quoted to himself. So this is the second of our quotations from the Quran here. It was technically the third, if you like. And here it is. Surely we have put on their necks fetters up to the chin, so their heads are raised. And we have put before them a barrier, and behind them a barrier, and we have covered them, so they do not see. Now, this is, let me get this right, Surah Yasin, ayats 8 and 9. So that means in the Quran, that's chapter 36, verses 8 and 9. This is the wee bit where I was doing a wee bit of research. So a surah is the chapter, ayat is the verse. Yasin, it says, by the way, here is that's the name of this surah, if I'm not making a complete arse of myself. Is, according to what I looked up, I think on Wikipedia, possibly somewhere, are supposedly mysterious letters whose meaning is still debated by Islamic scholars. Again, you'll find this. We've put the link up there on Haris Durrani's little article on the first chapter of Children of Dune. Have a wee nosy at it. I've written down that I've actually got what it says. I looked this up on the internet. What it says here was, this is the actual version that I got from the Quran online, is it says, it is as if we have put shackles around their necks up to their chins, so their heads are forced up, and have placed a barrier before them and a barrier behind them and covered them all up, so they fail to see the truth. So this is again another one of these references to the Islamic holy book of the Quran. And we've had we had a lot more of these in Dune, by the way, than we had in Dune Messiah, I think. And I'm wondering, was that because of the absence of Gurney Halleck? I think Gurney's our main person that quotes from, I suppose, the Orange Catholic Bible. But this is meant to be, and we're told that this is, just the next bit is, thus it was written in the old Fremen religion. And I've written next to this, this is Islam. Stilgar nodded to himself. Yeah, let me see. I actually read the whole thing. Can I bring up my history just quickly to see if I can find it? Bear with me a wee second, folks. Bear with me a wee second. Sorry about this. Is that the one? It is. There we go. I got this off Quran.com, just to read you the first part of it. So this is chapters 8 and 9. But if we go from the beginning, Yasin, by the Quran rich in wisdom, you, O Prophet, are truly one of the messengers upon the straight path. This is a revelation from the Almighty, most merciful, so that you may warn a people whose forefathers were not warned and so are heedless. The decree or torment has already been justified against most of them, for they will never believe. It is, and this is where the quotation that we have begins. It is as if we have put shackles around their necks, up to their chins, so their heads are forced up, and have placed a barrier before them and a barrier behind them, and covered them all up, so they fail to see the truth. So that's 8 and 9. Just to go on from that, give it maybe a bit of better context. It is the same whether you warn them or not. They will never believe. You can only warn those who follow the reminder and are in awe of the most compassionate without seeing him. So give them good news of forgiveness and an honorable reward. It is certainly we who resurrect the dead and write what they send forth and what they leave behind. Everything is listed by us in a perfect record. Give them an example, O Prophet, of the residents of a town when the messengers came to them. We sent them 2 messengers, but they rejected both, so we have reinforced the 2 with a third, and they declared, we have indeed been sent to you as messengers. The people replied, you're only humans like us, and the most compassionate has not revealed anything. You're simply lying. The messengers responded, our Lord knows that we have truly been sent to you, and our duty is only to deliver the message clearly. And the people replied, we definitely see you as a bad omen for us. If you do not desist, we will certainly stone you to death, and you will be touched with a painful punishment from us. So the messenger said, your bad omen lies within yourselves. Are you saying this because you're reminded of the truth? In fact, you're a transgressing people. Then from the farthest end of the city, a man came rushing. He advised, O my people, follow the messengers, follow those who ask no reward of you and are rightly guided. And why should I not worship the one who originated me and to whom you will be returned? How could I take beside him other gods whose intercession would not be of any benefit to me, nor could they save me if the most compassionate intended to harm me? Indeed, I would then be clearly astray. I do believe in your Lord, so listen to me. So there's more to that. I just thought I'd go on a little bit there. I think it's to do with simply people who will not believe. Unbelievers, this kind of thing. Doesn't matter what you will do, that they're not going to believe. This kind of thing, if that makes sense. Yeah, so the metaphors, in relation to, I think, God, basically, that it's as if these people have had shackles and their necks put up, so their heads are forced up, and then there's a barrier placed behind them and covered them all up, so they can't see the truth. That's the gist of it, if you like. So this is Stilgar, with his real moral dilemma here, reverting to ancient Fremen tradition. What is written in the old Fremen religion? I said this is from Islam. This is from the Quran, and this is kind of what helps him resolve his issues, if you like. A more straightforward way of thinking, not the subtlety of politics of the Imperium. Oof, I need some fluids, folks. I hope we're doing okay. We're heading towards 3 hours. Short chapter. We're very nearly done. Just over the page, and that's us for our first chapter. I'm going to make myself a wee cigarette. So, Stilgar nodded to himself. To see, to anticipate the next moment, as Muad'Dib had done with his awesome visions of the future, added a counterforce to human affairs. It created new places for decisions. To be unfettered, yes, that might well indicate a whim of God, another complexity beyond ordinary human reach. Stilgar removed his hand from the knife. Decision made. His fingers tingled with remembrance of it. But the blade which once had glistened in a sandworm's gaping mouth remained in its sheath. As I like to point out, the brightest sword stays in its scabbard, the brightest knife stays in its sheath, this kind of thing. Stilgar knew he could not draw this blade now to kill the twins. He had reached a decision. Better to retain that one old virtue which he still cherished, loyalty. Better the complexities which defied understanding. Better the now than the future of a dream. Yeah. We only live in the now, don't we? The bitter taste in his mouth told Stilgar how bolting son be. No. No more. And that is the end of chapter 1 of Dune, folks. And again, the difference between a dream and a reality, the things that are being brought to us here. The chapter uses a number of wee techniques to remind us what's happened in the past. Within it drops a number of key terms that we're just in case we're not familiar with from the Dune series. We're reminded about things like abomination, the spice melange, term language of the Imperium, crysknives, Ayat and Baran, these kind of things. We get quotations from the Fremen religion, which is, of course, we know is a hybrid religion, but this in particular is from Islam. And I saw a wee article there by Harris Gironi. They're pointing out, I think these are, what did he say? Was it exact quotations from a particular translation of the Quran? You'll find this on his article there, and the links in the chat. Let me see. Where were we? Forward a wee bit. I'll scribble it down here. A.J. Arbery's 1955 translation of the Quran, English translation of the Quran, sorry. So the quotations from, again, it's good to figure out where Herbert gets his stuff from, isn't it? It's the same. I'm sure that there are many translations of the Quran, in the same way there are many translations of the Iliad or the Odyssey, this kind of thing. I suppose the Quran's meant to be read in its original Arabic, I think, isn't it? To get its true true feeling, if you like. But this is another source book for Frank Herbert, if you like this particular translation. And again, have a wee look at Harris Durrani's article on it, and he's got some thoughts on it. But apparently that's quoted verbatim from that edition. And I suppose we're going to see that very much that the same sort of threats are going to come towards the twins. We haven't really got to see much of them. They're both sleeping. We've had Fremen drowning in a wadi. And we're starting to get the sense that the ecological change to Arrakis does not go the way the Fremen thought it would. That this is the quote is here. It was not like the dream. We need to dreamers and blessed lunatics. This kind of thing. You need to be careful about dreams, especially if you try to make them come true, I suppose. But it depends on your imagination and what you thought. And I suppose ultimately the Fremen are conservative, aren't they? I wonder how big their dreams are. But this is what they wanted. It's not just the point, I suppose, is what the Fremen wanted, this mystic paradise of spreading greenery. Stilgar is very much a lens to look at the Fremen as well. He's a hugely important character in the first Dune trilogy. And we get to see an awful lot through Stilgar's eyes, I think, especially in Dune Messiah. But the dream has changed their planet. That's what they wanted, but it's changed them too. And it seems that we're told that Stilgar had become a far more subtle person than the one-time siege chieftain. Subtlety can be often seen as being slightly deceptive, I would think. uh, gently deceptive, if you see what I mean. Not always. Um, Subtlety has a care about it, whereas you kind of would consider maybe the Fremen as being a bit like blunt force trauma pretty prior to this. If you see much more practical, I think would be the way to look at it. So the changes to the planet have deeply affected Stilgar. All of this changes affected the entire universe. He's questioning his own role in this chapter. We have some real mistakes in this chapter, by the way, in terms of continuity of story. I think we have three. We've got, and we've had a few different words, a few problems with the printing of the text. Just a couple, really. One not that important. One, reality or choice. I think the word should be choice there, as we found is in the Berkeley editions. The Uma protector of late kinds. This is Uliet we're talking about now. Uliet was not ordered to fall on his knife. That didn't happen. This is Uliet's Pardo. Pardo Kynes is Leot Kynes' father, the subject of the little mini adventure in the first appendix of Dune, which is actually a prologue to the entire Dune series, set about probably 20, 30, maybe longer than that, 30 to 40 years perhaps before they have a couple of generations, we'll say. I tend to take a generation as being about 20 years. So there we go. Everybody's role in it, without Leot Kynes, without Stilgar, all the different things that have combined to create this universe. And how did it happen? We get a reminder of Abominations with Alia, both Alia and the twins, and we're also set up for the return of Lady Jessica as well. Rain has come to Arrakis, and we now should see half the planet as green, basically green and blue with water, and the fact that Fremen are drowning in wise. This is a very different world than the one that we encountered in Dune, and the one that has begun to change in Dune Messiah. And now we're seeing really, that change in, fully underway. And how would we look at it? Let's see. We can take a 12-year separation from Dune Messiah, I suppose, and then we have another 9 years to this point in the book. The kids are 9 years of age. Within Dune Messiah, the jihad's going to be going on for 12 years after. So we can kind of put a time frame onto how much time has passed. Just call it about 21 years or so from the rule of Paul Atreides and the instigation of his ecological plans that are originally conceived by Leto and Pardo. This is a very short time. We can consider it a single generation, if you like. For half the planet to be green is an immense change that's happened so quickly. And of course, there's a couple of little things that are really important that are dropped into this chapter, things that Stilgar realizes now. But particularly, I think, the nature of even the slightest decision having consequences. And of course, one of the things that Frank Herbert would have told you is that ecology is the science of understanding consequences. This is Frank taking someone else's words and swapping out one term. It's actually a quote by Paul Bigelow Sears. It's not about ecology. It's actually about science. Science is the understanding of consequences, if you like. I think it's called, which book is it from? I think it's from Where There's Life by Paul Bigelow Sears. Worth reading. It's a very good book to look at. I'll tell you where Frank gets a lot of his ecological ideas from, and it also is strongly suggestive of where Frank encountered Samuel Butler's Erewhon. In fact, I know it is. Samuel Butler's Erewhon is mentioned and discussed in Where There's Life by Paul Bigelow Sears, which is really interesting. Erewhon's, we keep talking about it now and then. Erewhon is one of the major influences on Dune. It's one of the places where Frank Herbert, if we say that bad writers borrow and good writers steal, it's where Frank Herbert stole a lot of his major ideas that are in this book. Five key points of absolute identity, as Frank Herbert would have pointed out, which I've always actually thought, whenever it came to him attacking Star Wars, made him a bit of a hypocrite, to be honest. if you understand how many different things Frank Herbert was bothered by Star Wars because he reckoned it stole a lot of his stuff, but the suggestion was that it also stole so many ideas from so many other science fiction writers, as well as things like Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress, etc. And Lucas did that, it created something entirely new. The hypocrisy from Frank is really where he's saying that George Lucas did that when he did exactly the same thing himself. Whether it be books like Sabers of Paradise, or Seven Pillars of Wisdom, Samuel Butler's Erewhon. We've found all sorts that Frank has deliberately lifted. He's lifted so much stuff from the Iliad and the Odyssey, from the Homeric epics, from the Theban plays. So Frank is a pilfer of other people's ideas in exactly the same way as George Lucas. In exactly the same way as George Lucas produced Star Wars, which is a pretty original thing in its own right, so is the Dune series. But I think he got told off for this by Timothy O'Reilly. And I'm not sure where it is, but I did listen to a podcast a wee while back. I'm hardly ever on. What would you call it? Spotify. There was an interview not too long ago with Timothy O'Reilly discussing the time when he went to speak to Frank Herbert and chat to him and went on about this, and he kind of told him to wise the hell up. Basically, that everybody's work is built on someone else's work, this kind of thing. So it's an interesting first chapter. We're off. We've hit the ground running, folks. As usual, we've gone looking for words and their meaning. We've found mistakes in the text. I thought that wasn't going to be maybe a thing in this edition, but there we go, straight off. We've got different words in different editions of the book. As Bojack pointed out, we have the Ace editions have choice, the Berkeley editions have choice. I've got the Hodders and the New English Library, a whole bunch of them here, and they've all got reality in it. So some of these mistakes aren't as damaging to the meaning, if you like, as others. Yes, and we're kind of seeing, I think, Stilgar kind of attempting to return to his core, I think is the way it's put it, this core Fremen values here to deal with these moral dilemmas that have presented themselves. As I said, one other wee thing, folks, was that there was some quite bad stuff about in the news. I'm sure if anybody's from the UK, horrific knife crime involving children, and I just wanted to sort of say, even myself, I'm thinking about the families and stuff, and those poor kids, but that we were covering a chapter in a book that covers that topic today. So I just wanted to say that it's because we're doing the Dune Book Club, and it was just the date that we booked to do this, and it's just very sad that something in real life has happened. Something quite utterly horrific, which has caused chaos, interestingly enough, all over the UK. So there we go, folks. If anybody's got any wee questions for me quickly or anything like that, that's our first chapter of Children of Dune Book Club. We're going to keep running as always. We're going to do one chapter every week, hopefully. And so we've got a few nice short chapters to start off with. We'll be back each Thursday night, hopefully at the same time, up until the GMT +1 runs out. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to this. The copy I'm working with is about 426 pages. And I actually thought that I'm going to make the notes in just the numbers that match up in the paragraphs to the notebooks. I'm also going to make them into this book, so that they can go with the other books that actually go with the notebooks, if you like. But there you go, multiple editions of Dune, not agreeing. It's still something I'm quite appalled by, and I wish somebody would do something about it. I'm sure the entire Dune series is a massive, massive money cow for the Herbert estate. But in terms of quality of publication, if they have any control over this, I seriously suggest they get an editor and fix these books, because I'd say this is a profound embarrassment to any publishing company. All books have errata, etc., have mistakes. It's everybody makes them, if you understand. But to have these mistakes in these books, they're either spelling mistakes, punctuation mistakes, or where words have been substituted that shouldn't have, or even words have been left out, or where we've got character names wrong because there's misspelled. That's quite horrific. And I thought if they were doing that at the same time, a great benefit to the Dune series would be to put all the terminology of the Imperium that's in Dune into all 6 books and possibly update it as the books move along, But it's just one of those things. So there we go, folks. It's just gone into the witching hour on the 2nd of August. It's been a wee bit of a month in terms of anniversaries for us, of course, with everybody passing away and stuff. My father passing away there in July. Today, we've gone to the 2nd, but the 1st of August would be my mum and dad's wedding anniversary. And then in another day's time, we have the anniversary of losing his wee dog as well. It's been a funny wee month, so I'm kind of glad I took it off and tried to recuperate, etc. a wee bit and watch me. Shoulder hasn't bothered me. I haven't been pain, which is good. Folks. But listen, it's great to have you all back. Thank you so much for your contributions as always, and hopefully we're learning and having a bit of fun about this at the same time, trying to understand these books and have fun with it because they're great books. I love them to bits. As much as I'm happy to be critical of Frank Herbert in all sorts of ways, I'm a huge fan, as I'm sure you know. And I'm not being too. When I talk about these mistakes in the books, I didn't really think that this is Frank Herbert's problem. This is the publisher's problem, editors. And I think it's very sad, But it's a great set of books, and God knows how many times I've read them. I've lost count now. But it's good to get the stuff fresh, I think, again into my own head, There we go. There's Carlos Crisales. Hey, Carlos, you take it easy. He's like, I will do. I'm doing my best. I'm trying to look after myself these days. And Chaya saying thanks, Doc. Good night. Thank you very much, Chaya, as always. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. As always, this as we keep saying, these book clubs are nothing without you. And if you've got any questions or any ideas at all, or even speculations, because Frank leaves a lot of things hanging, and sometimes he really just kind of wants us to kind of figure it out for ourselves. He will not give us all the answers, and he's on record as saying that. I'm not going to give it to you. It's part of his writing technique in many, many ways, is to leave a bit of a mystery about things. It's not always good to have all things answered, but we do our best. And there you go. So yeah, it's good to be back, folks. I enjoyed this tonight, I have to say. It's a good start to the book club. So I'll tell you what, I will say goodnight, folks. I'm very long-winded at saying goodnight. I have to say it's kind of an Irish thing, I suppose. But I will say, no matter where you are, look after yourselves, please. Take care, and whatever gods you worship, may they go with you. And hopefully we'll see you all real soon. Look after yourselves. We'll be back on Thursday at 9 p.m. GMT +1 with Chapter 2 of the Children of Dune book club here on Docksland Science Fiction Station at the Doghouse. Oh, there you go. I did that wrong. There we go. Got a t-shirt. There we go. So all the very best, folks. Take it easy. Good night. All the best. Be safe. Bye-bye.